I'd like to call to order a special meeting of the Frankfurt Plant Board. Today's agenda is, this is on Wednesday, January 2nd, 2021 at 1 o'clock. We've got two items on the agenda today. The first is to talk about the emergency broadband service that we talked about at the last board meeting, and staff was going to do a review and get back to us. And the second and the primary purpose of today's meeting is to review the budget and walk through it, see where we are, make any changes, and determine what our next steps are. So with that, Ms. Poe, would you call the roll?
Member Hale?
Here.
Member Cuban?
Here.
Member Mason?
Here.
Member Snyder?
Here.
Member Dutton Mitchell?
Here.
We have a quorum, and therefore the first item would be, I guess, Travis, are you going to handle it? Or who's going to handle the emergency broadband? Vin? Hans, do you want to?
I'll go ahead and jump in, Hans, and then you and I can knock this out between the two of us. So, good afternoon, board. Looking here at our board packet, looking at page 1 on this action item number 2, EBB program. It's to consider electing to participate in the emergency broadband benefit program and authorizing FPB staff to take any and all action or all steps necessary to implement the EBB program. What we provided for you in your board packet is a memo that we put together that summarized the details or high-level details of the EBB program. We've also included the full FCC order that lays out the EBB program, Emergency Broadband Benefit Program, for your review. And we've included a few things in your packet that we've already got down the road a little bit as staff on how this would look. So we really dug in to look at what are the requirements that this order is putting before us, such as who should participate, who's allowed to participate, eligibility requirements, the benefits for covered services and devices, the budget and reimbursement of the program, certain promotional requirements that we must have to advertise the program, how the FCC and others will audit that, program enforcement, and the biggest thing for us is how we operationalize all this into a workable program that our customers can benefit from and will be efficient. So with all that information before you, I'll turn over anything else, Hans, you wanted to add to that and just ask what the board's pleasure would be. We talked about last board meeting coming back with a list of expenses or what this looks like in cost. And I think the best way to talk about this is that we have the infrastructure in place as far as our IT staff, personnel, programs, everything we need. This comes down to the staff's time and using that time and the human resources we have to make the program work. So it really comes down to payroll, which you already have budgeted, and we're here to work 40 or more hours a week. So it really comes down to payroll time. So I thought the best way to go about it is just to say staff is able, willing, and can get this off the ground and running in a reasonable time if the board would like to go down this road. So
I guess the two biggest questions, at least for mine, I'll start off here. Three biggest questions, I guess. First is, unfortunately, the program appears to have a lot of, not strengths to it. I mean, just some, but that's the way it is. That's the federal guidelines. Two, we don't know how long it's going to last. We don't know how long the money will last. And it's hard for us, given the guidelines, to really get a good, hard feel in terms of exactly how many people in Franklin County either already are eligible and would participate or may not be getting broadband and would participate. And those are really, there's no getting those answers. I mean, we don't have any experience with it, no one else does.
Right.
But it could help a lot of people in this community, potentially, if we go down that path. Mm-hmm. So, I guess with that, does the board have any questions or?
Mr. Chairman, I've got.
Yes, sir.
David or Hans, either one can probably answer this. And this is I think this was something I might have thrown out at the last meeting. a lot of this eligibility, all the eligibility was determined by federal guidelines. The federal government determines who's eligible and who's not eligible for this project. One of the eligibility criteria was participation of a student in the free and reduced lunch program. Now, did we ever get an answer? Did we ever figure out how that works for places like Frankfurt Independent, to where my children went to school when they went there? You know, we didn't meet the income guidelines for free and reduced lunch, but because a large percentage of the population of that school got it, everybody in that school was able to take advantage of that. So, if my kids were still in school, could I have come to you and say my children participate in the free and reduced lunch program? Is that enough to get me in, or would I have to meet those income guidelines to be eligible individually for that program? Because if not, that's a huge loophole that opens up eligibility, way more than we thought it would probably.
I think that's correct. I know Casey's on the call. I see him there. I know he did an experiment. I believe it is where the percentage it's based on the individual first. The individual always has to apply and has to opt in. But you're correct. I believe that once the school system reaches a certain threshold, certain level, then everyone in that school is eligible for the program. And the order mentions that. It says, well, this might be a little over inclusive, but we're trying to get broadband to the most people. And I think Casey had done an experiment and had gotten some registration under that basis for qualification.
Yeah, that's correct. That the National School Lunch Program has a community eligibility provision, and that program is specifically called out in the order, basically saying that if your child attends a school that participates in the community eligibility provision, then they would be eligible for this program. So all students, all families with students attending a school where they don't have to pay school lunch would be eligible for this discount.
Does every school have to pay? Every school that participates in that program, is every student eligible? Are they doing that just because it's just not practical?
Because I guess I think it was, I had it in my head. Don't quote me on this. It was like 70 or 75%.
Yeah.
Once you hit that threshold, it was almost more trouble than to charge the kids lunches, and all that kind of stuff, because you had most of them doing it the other way.
The second question though is, where would the planning board get the information to verify who is eligible?
I don't think we have to, right? I mean, they're gonna verify it and just give us,
The national verifier encompasses all of the qualification criteria. So the national verifier is, as far as I understand it, is the one-stop shop for qualifying the applicant.
So you would seek it from there. So I guess I've been asking that to answer your question. The point is
Yeah.
that they would tell us who was eligible.
Sure,
So it's not-
sure.
but I think in answering John's question, if John had applied, he would have been eligible for the program from the national verifier.
Well, I don't know if we know that yet. Really.
Well, I think,
I think the criteria from what Hans has laid out is that they're understanding that those folks are able to do it, and even though it might be a little all-inclusive, and I don't care one way or the other. We're going to follow whatever the federal government tells us to do on the eligibility. I'm just saying it's going to maybe increase participation in the program if you cast that wide of a net.
the unfortunate thing about that is, from a national standpoint, it's just gonna burn up the money that much faster.
Yeah.
Right.
It won't go as far as they would have hoped it
And it
was.
won't go to the intended population.
Right.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
So,
One thing I've heard in the interim, some of the industry publications, that the work may not be, it may have more of a lasting effect. There's kind of a push to make a permanent, access to broadband being the big topic that it is. So it may be a lasting thing, and the work will have, it won't just expire at the end of this time frame. But yeah, that, of course, you don't know if that's going to happen or not, but that's a chance of that.
and John, I have
Yeah,
one more
John.
question if you don't mind. David or Hans, either one, are we going to have, you know, we have to train our customer service representatives to kind of be the intake people for this, I'm assuming. Will we just cross-train all of our CSRs to do this, or will we have a select group that handle these specifically? I don't know what the qualifications are, how much training they have to go through to get that. How are we gonna try to handle that based on you all trying to administer it?
Now, that's a good question, and you hit on some things that we've definitely discussed internally. At first, we thought about having specialists that when you call in, we could handle it that way, because we were thinking the volume would be relatively small. In past programs where we have extended reduced broadband to Franklin Independent, Franklin County, sometimes surprised at the lack of participation or how hard it was to get people to volunteer information to get it going. But whenever we started going down the path of this free and reduced lunch and who is truly eligible, we think we could have a much larger customer base that would be interested in getting a $50 reduction in their bill. So from the offerings that we've discussed is that we would have the full range of FPB residential internet offerings that we offer today with the $50 off each one of those. So to answer your question, we would probably train up all CSRs, register them with through the databases so that they can enter in the national verifier information, so that anyone that calls in at any time could get service quickly. I think we're going to have a much larger group of customers to take us up on this if we go down this path.
So what would be the flow? Maybe Hans, you can answer this. I'm out in the community, I hear about it, I call us. We're gonna tell you to go first to the national verifier.
You input your data, and then they give you Casey can probably speak to this a little bit. Then they give you an ID number, I think, and then
And
they
then you
bring
call
us
us back?
ID.
and then they
Yeah.
come. That's your ID, and then you come back to your service provider, and
So
that's
we
how.
could possibly deal with the customer at least twice. Call for initial information. We then refer you to the national verifier. You get verified with your number, then you recontact us, and then we either schedule your installation and/or we apply you the credit on your bill if you're already a customer.
That's correct. That's correct. I see it twice, at
Yeah.
least twice.
At least
That's
twice.
right. Yes, sir.
And Mr. Cubine, Board, what we would like to try to accomplish is to try to use the customer portal to ingest and educate the customer as much as possible about the program. So we would let them know that it's available. You know, we've got a description page, tells them how to go and complete the national verifier application. They have to wait for an email which will have this applicant ID. They would come back to that same page, give us their applicant ID, and we turn around and resubmit that. And that's what kind of ties that customer to us, and then we can apply for that reimbursement.
One of the big things as well is we have to verify that the customer is using the service on a monthly basis before we submit reimbursement. If the customer pays something towards the bill after the reimbursement, then that considers that box checked, that we know if they're paying for it, the FCC saying, hey, we're good that they're using it. If they don't eat the full $50, if the regular standard rate does not absorb all 50, for example, our standard 25 meg offering would be a $44 service plus the $5 equipment, putting you at 49, just below the 50. We felt like that minimum offering was something that was important to offer to the customer. Some might not want to pay anything, and some might just want the 25. Each home's different. So what we will do in this case is we will have to verify usage on those customers that were to opt for EBB and the standard package. We would send emails, text, some request to them to acknowledge they used the service during the month, and hopefully we can get positive response without a phone call. But
Is
if
it
we,
$50, does it also include tax?
on our internet service, there is no tax charged, so.
There's no fees or taxes at all under state?
No, sir. No, sir. So that, just want to let you know that this would be a new level of engagement with us and the customer on a monthly basis of just trying to get positive confirmation that the service is being used. But I just want to bring that up because that's something we've not done before. and it will be a little dance we have to kind of do. Every month we submit reimbursement. So if they don't positively respond in email or text, then we're probably going to need to get on the phone and say, verify you did use it, or please go to your email and sign off and all that. When the program comes to an end, then we would get back with those customers and let them know the program's coming to an end, and we would like to still have you as a customer. Otherwise, the program ends and you're off your service. So.
I have a question. What happens if people do not currently have internet, so therefore they can't go to that federal program to sign up for it? Are people going to do that for them, or how are we just going to say go to the library and do it? Or, there are a lot of people out there that are not real computer literate.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's one of those situations we'll need to work through. You do have a significant amount of population that has a phone that they could use. We're just kind of moving that direction with everything we do these days. Is you have to be internet savvy or enough to operate. But that's something we'll need to work through. We don't have the answers to that yet.
Using the schools though, if you're basing it on the free and reduced lunches, maybe the districts can help out, educating, because it helps them too.
And during the summer, they could set up a computer
more
lab where
ways
they
than
could open
one.
up some computers in their lobby or something for people to come by and register.
Ms. Cuban,
Yes,
I
sir.
mean, one thing I like to say, Hans and David and David's staff from IT to customer service, they spend a lot of time in last, 10 days, right? So since the last time we talked about it, then because they want to make sure everything have to be
Right.
have to be, customer cannot just say we found a problem, we deal with that. We have to do all these things easily in the front. In order for us to got to reimburse from FCC, the company, then IT have to spend a lot of time, including modify our program if you decided to do that, because all these things need to be done in order to make it work. Even David mentioned to verify for the people pay zero, then end up every month by FCC requirement. We have to, it's our responsibility to verify, then submit that to FCC and also keep those data for our 6 years, right? So there are a lot of things.
Right.
I think staff have done pretty decent job. They believe this program potentially can help customers if you decide to go today.
Catherine, did you have any questions?
It's been answered, but just to follow up, so essentially we've already invested some time and energy into this, just based on your all's push over the last 10 days to kind of figure all this out. But I guess to go back to John's point about the one way to qualify is participating in a federal program that provides free or reduced lunch. So that literally means if you go to a school that's 100%, then that's considered participating. Okay.
Yeah, it is. Some providers are leaning into that and, encouraging people to do that. I can see both sides. I think that what thing for sure is that I think the volume that we originally thought about with this program, when we've dug into it, it's going to be much higher than expected. So.
Okay.
John?
One other thing, this is kind of out of left field a little bit, but one of the things you mentioned, I think it's interesting, the things people are going to have to know, we're not going to be able to provide the 12-month discount if they're going to sign up for next band and those sorts of things. One of the things that I found was interesting was these customers, and in this day and age, I almost still can't believe we still have customers that are on 128 and 265K. How many folks do we have in those grandfathered clause, and would that be a way to get those folks out? Because once if they're in that grandfather clause and they leave and sign up for this, there's no going back to that, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's right. We have speeds, some that are still, we don't serve anything or offer anything today less than 25 meg. So there's a 10, 1, and a few kilobyte packages down there still being used. I can't imagine that being more than like an email machine or something. But we've always wanted to encourage those customers to move up. When we changed and just did away with those packages, it was grandfathered in and they were able to keep them. But with this program, you know, the federally definition for high-speed internet is 25 meg.
Right.
We really feel like for you to get any type of level of service you need in today's world, 25 meg is the base
right.
offering. So
Yeah.
this is encouraging people, if they do go EBB program, they would, and they're on a package below 25 meg, would not be able to return back. They don't have to go EBB program and can stay in that package, but if you choose to go, we're encouraging and eventually might even have to push everyone to the 25. This is a way to, you try it, you like it, we think.
Well,
we think
you know, if you're gonna go from one to 25, I mean, there's gonna be no going back for those folks.
Right,
So,
right.
so what are those, this is just me, what are the charges for those tiers that we don't offer new entries into?
You know, that is a good question, and I didn't answer we have over 600 customers below
Really?
25 meg, out of 15,500, so more than you would think. That is a good question. I looked at the other day what our 10 meg was. I can come back around to that, but it's something less than 44. It's more like 30 or something like that for 10 meg.
What's it cost, just one last question, what does it cost us to maintain that for those? Is there any cost to us to maintain that slower speed right now, those 600?
Not really. I mean, IT might have a different perspective. For me, I think the cost is public perception. If your service is not sufficient to meet your needs, then it's an FPB problem, when really I think it's a speed problem. So I don't think it's a bandwidth issue for us.
It's not costing, I'm just wondering, is it costing us more to maintain that than the difference in price?
No, we just provision the speed the customer asks for,
Okay.
so it's not a big deal.
Okay. I mean, I think it's the kind of thing probably under any normal situation, and nothing's really been normal for over a year. Under any normal situation with all these unknowns, I'm not sure what you all be wanting to do, but given the potential value to this community and the good it can do, what's your all's pleasure? Do I have a motion to embark on it?
I'll make a motion. I just think we need to do it for the community, but also we have to stay on top of offering all opportunities, practical opportunities, because competitors will come in
Yes.
soon. And so from that point, I make the motion that we proceed with this initiative.
Do we have a
I'll
second?
second.
We have a motion, a second. Do we have discussion? Okay, seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Mr. General Manager, we'll see you around the bend. Yeah. I know, how fast will this start happening, Hans? I know you guys submit an application, and then Kathy's gotta start doing some publicity, and
Tomorrow, what we'll do.
tomorrow you
is-
can have it done, that's good.
Tomorrow, we'll submit you submit a narrative description along with authorization to provide service, and that'll be the ordinance that kinda created the full service network. Your rate card, and then a summary of your 477 filing. We'll submit that to USAC, and then they'll hopefully get back to us quickly. And then David can get his CSRs registered and trained up, and then Kathy can start going about her marketing and so forth. So that's kind of the next steps in the process.
Okay, thank you. Next item, Mr. Denton,
Yes, sir.
it's the best day of the world.
I tell
Best
you
day of the
what.
week, Budget week.
It's Christmas in June. So I
Steve
think
loves the budget too, don't you,
Yeah, I do.
Steve?
So the next item on the agenda was this is our annual budget meeting, where we would walk through this together as a group and kind of throw out what you have before you and get a conversation started. So let me go ahead. I'm going to share my screen here. I'm going to jump around quite a bit between different things because it's hard to plan for every question that might come your way throughout the day. So we'll get through it together. We've got 4 beautiful hours ahead of us.
We looking at a motion to adjourn here, buddy.
I joked every year, every year I do joke that I was gonna lead off with, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the budget as presented, but, I won't do that. So, before we get started, I just wanna say a few words. I think I represent Gary and staff in saying that I wanna thank you all for the opportunity to present the budget to you all today. Also want to thank our customer owners that allow us and fund us to be here on a daily basis. So I think it's important that we know where the money in this budget comes from. It does come from our customer owners, and we are aware of that on a daily basis and how we make our decisions. So we try to be good stewards and good fiscally responsible and good fiduciaries of this community's money and treasure that they invest back in this company. So that's how we come at it every day. So I appreciate the opportunity, and we'll dive into it. I don't think we've named a budget before, but we're calling this budget Frankfurt's Future Now, and because we really have a lot of exciting things in the budget as proposed. I think one of the big things to say is that whenever you're looking at finances, to have options is a really nice thing. And the board, this board of directors has a lot of options that you can go, a lot of different avenues you can go. So that's a really good thing. What we have before us in the proposed budget today is just a set of options that could be changed and adapted and tweaked. So this is just grounds for conversation today. So Frankfurt's Future Now, we're looking at our fiscal year that we're looking for approval is for the year ending June 30, 2022. So we're a fiscal year July to June. So that is what we're asking for approval on at our next regular budget meeting. Of course, we have all the way up until the end of June. This plan, when you have a utility has a significant amount of capital investment, there are outstanding deadlines that we have in order to finance large projects. It really helps to look out more than 1 year. So what we have is a 1-year budget for 22, and then we have a 5 years total, kind of a snapshot for us to plan long-term. So just want to talk about today's goals. What we're trying to get through is just talk a little bit about the budget and the 5-year plan. As I go throughout, we'll have back and forth questions from the board and staff throughout the meeting. The idea is to walk away today with more of a direction for what the board would like to see in this budget, what changes you'd like to see. I'll kind of gauge the room on, do we have, just walk away with what you would like to see changed. And then we would come back to our regular June 15th meeting to ask for approval of the final second draft. So we thought we would walk through the agenda with the way the budget's laid out, talk about our general overall assumptions and things of that nature, and walk through the 3 divisions, followed with the administrative departments. And then we can get into any specifics that the board would like, really at any time. Some things that just lay out for what the plant board has to deal with when it comes to timing of the budget. We are considered a special purpose governmental entity under KRS 65A, so we must have a budget adopted before the first day of each fiscal year, which is July 1. We do put that budget out. If you go to the Department of Local Government as an SPGE website, you can search Plant Board and any SPGEs like us and find financials, not just financials, but also our audited financials for every given year. So we'll submit any amendments that we have to, in any given year. We have to submit those amendments to Department of Local Government, and then we'll have the actual submitted by September 1st. Something that I thought I would start with today, because I really, this is, we're looking at what is our purpose? What are we here for? And I see myself referring back to this mission statement. It's at the bottom of page 2, I think, of our budget. I thought I'd read it. I think there was a board, I didn't know the history, that spent some time on this. So the Plant Board's mission is to enhance our community and benefit customers by safely, reliably, and economically providing services while maintaining a responsive, well-managed, environmentally sensitive, and sound organization grounded in integrity. So as we think about what we're trying to accomplish in the budget, we really feel like that this budget meets the missions of the Plant Board. And I thought we'd take off by kind of highlighting One of the mission critical things we talk about is safety and reliability. In order to have that with the utility system is a lot of significant capital investment, infrastructure investment is needed on a reoccurring basis to make sure all electric, water, telecom services work when the customer needs them. And they're also, with the flip of a switch, turning on the faucet or jumping on the internet, it's ready to go at any given time. So one of the big highlights of this budget is that we have a significant, I would venture to say historic amount of capital investment in infrastructure at $30.5 million in just fiscal year 22 alone. Three of the large projects that we've talked about over the recent months, and our community, I think, has come to hear and understand these, is the electric and water advanced metering infrastructure, or the smart meter project. That's approximately $9 million over 2 different fiscal years. Looking to replace our 135-year-old water reservoir, which is absolutely central to our water distribution system, to make sure we have reliable, potable water for all of our community. And then the next real big one is the next band, next generation fiber network the plant board is currently working on that will truly make Frankfort the next gig city, which is a very exciting project. So that is one of the largest pieces. If I had to come down to what would you summarize this budget, and it would be large investments in infrastructure that our customer owners are truly going to feel and benefit from. This is something they'll see and actually have some, when you interact with us, have some real benefits. Something else we talk about safety, reliability. One of the other big parts of our mission we talked in that mission statement was economical services and financially sound organization. So something exciting in this budget is that we have, it's just thrown out as a possibility, is to reduce our existing long-term debt by 76% in this first year, fiscal year 22, by prepaying off all lines, external debt lines except for one. What that means is by cutting off those loan terms early, that we would save over $5.2 million in interest expense over the remaining term had we paid it. So what that means for us, yes, it's a big amount of money out the door first year, but what it means looking forward is that we have, that's $5 million in interest that you would have paid to a third party, but that we could take that money and invest it back into these large infrastructure projects, and also that money would be able to help reduce pressure on future rate adjustments for all of our services that we naturally have rate pressure because of rising cost of operating, just like anybody else. So those are some really big, exciting things there. We've talked about major investment, major debt retirement, but the good news to those who might be watching today, in this 5-year plan, we have no rate increases for our electric service over the 5-year plan. In fiscal year 22, there are no planned rate increases for water. And then our telecommunications services, the only increase there would be the pass-through cost for cable TV programming that are really out of the control for the plant board if you want to be in the cable TV business. Anybody that offers cable TV programming has the same type of problem. So able to heavily invest in infrastructure, pay down debt, and a lot of other things without changing rates in this next year. So we feel like it's a very exciting thing to talk about. When we talk about revenue requirements, so like when customers pay us every month, what does that bill go towards? I pay you a lump sum. What are you doing with it? Well, there are I call them 4 pillars of revenue requirements, or your bill really goes to 4 different things. First, we have to operate the business on a day-to-day basis. You got to pay for your most valuable asset in the employees that come and operate all this beautiful equipment and make everything work. That budget this year is just over $94.5 million for the operations side of the business. The second piece that your money would go towards debt service. We usually go out and issue debt only to finance large projects that we can't cover on our regular revenue that we generate on an annual basis. So we're going out for big projects. We do have quite a bit of outstanding debt. Let me go ahead and just talk about it real quick, just to give the numbers out since we're talking. So we're gonna end this year at 27.6 million in external debt, looking to reduce that by 21 million. So we would finish the year just under 6.5 million. That debt service, just like if your home, car, or any other credit card debt, you're paying the principal, what you've borrowed, plus interest expense. So this would save 5.4 million if we were to do this prepayment plan that's being proposed. If you were to look at this and go, well, the idea we have for the prepayment plan and also some of our infrastructure investment is to ask our electric division. Electric division has got a pretty healthy cash balance, and we would like to use some of those cash reserves to internally fund large capital projects and pay off debt. And we look at, if you were not going to use cash reserves for the electric division for those two purposes of prepayment or infrastructure, what would you do? Well, they would be sitting in a very safe investment. As investing public funds, we have a very few things where we can invest in as a company. So you're not looking at chasing really high returns on your cash. So if we were to internally loan the money from electric to water and telecom, what does that look like compared to going out to the third party out in the market, or however you want to finance it, and financing it at 3%, a 2% difference? Over the terms of these projects, over about 30-year period, you're saving $9 million as a company. Once again, we can plow right back into infrastructure and also keep pressure off future rate adjustments. So,
very quickly, what are the projects that are proposed to pay off the debt?
so we have, I tell you what, I'll just walk through all of them real quick. I'll just answer your question.
Yeah.
That we propose to pay off.
The first we propose, not in this order, but is the Series 2015A Electric and Water Revenue Bonds. These bonds were issued back in, I believe, January of 2015 to fund the construction of the administration building that we're in today. So we would propose paying those off. The next is, there are two KIA notes that were issued for large water projects. One was for one's for the generator, and there were a couple others. So there's two of those at about 5.6 million that we would prepay. We have one that's going to naturally, on its own, it's the FSN consolidated note for telecom. It's going to pay off in 22 regardless. That's the last payment. So this is really looking at paying off 4 different lines. 3 that would be prepaid, 1 that's already in term. So that would be a reduction. With the regular debt service, it's $21 million reduction year one.
Electric customer money and using it, and the electric customers funding it, because the electric customers, those loans will be paid back to electric, and the electric will have that for future operational costs.
Absolutely. We very clearly show where we are accounting for the internal loan at the from electric to water and telecom at the 1% rate. We show where the principal will be repaid and where the interest expense to those two divisions will flow in interest income to electric. So it's being priced into the rate setting mechanism of water and telecom. So if you're a water only customer, we are counting that in so that you're paying the proper rate of service, not cross subsidizing and paying maybe less or more than you should. So that is very clearly put in here. It's a big deal. We try to make sure the service you take from FPB, that you're paying the cost of service for that.
So John, let me ask you a question just on that. So the end result of all of this we're doing is slowing the pace at which rates go up across the whole company, in the sense that we're financing with cheaper money by internally doing it, so thus saving some of the potential rate increases on water and telecom, on those things. Also, along with perhaps providing electric with future earnings based on current and future earnings based on those loans to them, which will impact positively the rates of the electric companies.
Yes, sir. Yes to all those things. You think about what this starts doing to the financial ratios of the company. when all of a sudden you have just one telecom note outstanding, which would be for the head end and infrastructure improvements that were made. You know, our debt to income ratio just goes off the charts. We're looking at going from, 6% of revenue down to less than 1% on your interest or debt service for the year. You're setting the company up in a very good way that every bill, every payment made from a customer is really going right back into operations or infrastructure. You're almost at that point where I think a good analogy for any customer watching that has, you're a mom and dad with a family of 4, what we've talked about here is that you've made enough plans financially to have sufficient cash and revenue to be able to pay off your home, pay off your car, go ahead and start planning for the future with your kids' college fund, and still have enough money set aside for a rainy day. So it's a positive. It's positive, and it's a proposal. Like I say, options are abundant this year with what we can put out there.
I'm sure you're talking about doing all this and still, I'm sure you're talking about that we're still going to be able to do something for customers in terms of rebate.
Yes, sir. That's something that hadn't been mentioned yet, is that the electric rebate still in the 5-year plan, funded at $1.6 million a year. For the average residential usage, it's about around the $30 rebate. And for customers that use, it's based on usage. So those customers, large commercial, large power, will get much more than that. It's based on percentage of usage.
At the
So.
same time that electric has saved this money, and we can use this money to pay down the debt, give the rebate. KU's going up how many times, Gary?
Based on newspapers, 3 times last 4 years.
So you think about what's one of the biggest things the plant board can do for this community is offering reliable, safe service that is economical. And you have those around you when we're competing for industry or for residents to come move here. Those around you are raising rates. FPB is holding steady. You start to pull away from that competition and look as a very attractive place to live and maybe start a business. So I think economic development is a big deal that's being proposed to perpetuate that further with this budget. So.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Anybody, since I've interrupted you, anybody take advantage of my interruption?
Just to make a statement, I just think that the plant board and our customers should be really happy with the plant board's financial planning and keeping our infrastructure current and up to date. Because if you look across the country, there are so many places, particularly with water and other things too, that have real issues because they haven't kept their infrastructure current and up to date. And we have. And so that's a real advantage, again, to our community and our customers.
John, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
David, particular question about the prepayment idea. We're limited in what we can do. We've got arbitrage issues with trying to invest a lot of this stuff. I do have one question though. I understand where the FSN note comes out in 2022. We've got the other one that comes out in 24. The head end note was not included in the thing. Is that because it goes off in 29 and it's not a longer term? Is that why that was excluded from the prepayment?
So when you look at the way the plant board is structured, the KRS, electric and water are really tied at the hip when it comes to the issuing debt and collateral.
Okay.
And like the bonds are repaid based on the promise of electric and water revenue.
Okay.
So the thought process there was that we would prepay first. Electric didn't have any by itself already, no debt. Let's pay off all the water. Then electric already had, if water was able to cover it, electric had to come in anyway. So let's go ahead and get electric and water debt-free. And then, you could argue in the future that it could be before the board that if you would want to prepay that last line, you could. This year, with all of these suggestions and everything that we've just laid out, we still are within the 90 days cash on hand range at the end of this 22 fiscal year, which is, I wouldn't want to go much below that. So for this year, we felt like we bit off as much we could chew with that.
Thank you. And a large allocated share of debt service goes against, water and electric for this building, right?
Yes, sir. The electric and water revenue are pledged for the debt service of this building. So we have internally always accounted for it that, electric, water, and telecom divisions benefit from this admin building. So all have allocated a piece of the payback. But if you really got down to it, who is on the hook from a collateral debt servicing perspective? Electric and water. So what this will do, if you were to pay off the 2015 A bonds used to build this building, electric would be completely removed. That was the only piece really electric had, was the admin building portion. So now electric's debt-free. Water is, we would have water and telecom paying back in their remaining debt back to electric. So it goes from all three now allocated to really just two now are funding the internal loan to pay off that debt. Feel like it's a good plan. I wouldn't put it out if I didn't feel comfortable about it. I think you see when we look at the long-range cash position of the company, I don't think we get to levels that are uncomfortable in any way. If we were to have a significant event in '22, a weather event that was pricey, I think we would be able to get through it. And if not, you go out and ask for short-term cash to get through before you have the FEMA kicking in. So that would be my only really hesitation, is something we can't even foresee. So other than that, that is the heart. It is. I'd be glad to go ahead and walk through any other assumptions you may have, but Mr. Cuban, you've got a good handle on it. You can just feel free to lead me any way you'd like.
Well, you basically, and these are kind of cross-cutting issues across the entire budget. CERS is going up this year. When the General Assembly passed the phase-in on CERS, this is another year that it's bumping up.
Mm-hmm.
So retirement costs are going up
Mhm.
for the state retirement system that we'll pay our share of.
Right.
That's included in this budget.
Yes, sir.
Health insurance, basically, reasonably, it's remaining relatively flat on the assumption it was a little slower last year because a lot of people weren't able to get procedures in that during COVID.
Mhm.
But we're basically taking it and we're projecting it to kind of stay flat for the next couple of years. And that's self-funded. We're following a normal salary policy and we've got raises. We're projecting a 2% raise for all employees on July 1st. And we don't know yet what the city's doing. We know the county's doing 2%. And just throw this out for discussion, whether we want to consider putting something in like 2% or whatever the city does, whichever's higher. It's kind of just throw that out. We got health insurance raises. We have taken a look at some areas, and I know this is an area that everybody on the board had an interest in. We built into this budget to address two areas that were getting hurt badly. One is competition with electric linemen.
Mhm.
And every time we lose a lineman, generally after 5 years after we've spent time training them, then that increases our overtime costs when we lose people. We have to bring new people in, retrain them, go through the whole cycle. And we're way out of line with KU. Also, we're addressing, as we're going to fiber to the home, that we've got to address those salaries because we're competing directly with the AT&Ts, the Spectrums, the DirecTVs, and all those people for the same people.
Mhm.
And I know Michelle's looked at all that. We're also addressing our pay grades. We're basically raising our entry pay so that nobody, basically on our lower pay grades, we're staying competitive with retailers, the Walmarts, fast food, and everybody else. We're getting rid of those lowest pay grades. And that is not an across the board raise for those people. That's just basically changing those pay bands. So we're more competitive on the entry level salaries, but I think Gary, our lowest entry salary right now is $11 and something.
11, that was 72
I'm
cents.
just afraid our entry lowest starting our
Become
12, 14, what?
I forgot, David, when do you remember?
Yeah, I think it was around 13.
13.
I need to look. I can't remember.
So is that done to
Michelle might
be
be
a
able to.
grade
She's on the
change?
call.
Just a salary thing.
The two lowest grades go away.
Okay, so they,
So then we adopt the new grade, and only, there's a handful of people whose current salary is below the new minimum. But in terms of everybody else in that grade, it doesn't affect me. It does affect new hires, and it would affect anybody who, if we have somebody currently making 11 something an hour, they would move to the new minimum.
1171.
1171.
The newest one was 1399.
So if you come, I'm sorry, if you came in at 11, if you're currently sitting at 1171 or 1250, you would move up to that new minimum.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
they'll be in this budget, they do that.
Right, beginning
Okay,
July 1st.
okay.
And we have, in case anything you want to go any deeper, I know we have Michelle, our HR director, on the call. Don't hold me to this, but I think that issue of eliminating the two lowest positions was around 25,000, which is, to get everyone up, all the right reasons. I just throwing that number.
I mean, if you
out.
look around, watch every night, I mean, Amazon, Walmart, everyone is all raising their interest because
Right.
the competition's out there, and
Right,
we've got good employees, and we want to be able to attract people in those positions, so.
right.
In terms of other major kind of general assumptions, you've got postage.
We do. I think it was in January, there was a penny increase on the metered
And
service.
there's gonna be another 3 cents, right? We're going to 58, is that right? Or
Sounds right.
60? What is it?
58.
55 to
That's what they're
58,
asking
right?
for, yeah.
We have a mail meter here at this building, and we usually funnel most mail out of here. And then the biggest cost is mailing out our paper customer bills each month, which runs through our customer service department's budget, and that is in there as well. We've had a large, over time, a nice steady increase in the amount of customers going paperless, and we have seen that in the numbers, that less billing for paper bills has been good, but of course it helps offset increases like that.
Given that it's gonna bump again, is there any reason to think about, extra incentivizing that $5 that we give people to switch?
That's always an option.
I mean, what I'm saying is, would that be from our standpoint, would that save us? I remember when we first went to the $5, and we actually think recoup that with, what, 4 or 5 months?
Yeah, I've got
9 months, I forget what it was. We recouped that within 1 year, the $5.
Here's a handy chart there that shows,
Oh,
you
well,
can
look at
see the paperless, when it started, we did see a bump, and it's been a nice steady march up. And then the other one is the portal accounts. That is something Casey mentioned, leveraging FPB portal. I tell you what, COVID did, there was a lot of unfortunate, which it never had happened, but there are some positives from a lot of businesses, processes changed, not just FPB, but for us, our customers learned how to do a different way with, interact with us in a different way. So we did see a bump from COVID on people logging in, checking their usage, checking their bills, paying online, using our free e-check. We're going to continue to drive customers to our portal because everyone gets more comfortable with technology. I know when we're talking about this budget, the idea is if we can do more with less, that is always good for your financial position. So we would like to try to leverage people to be able to meet them where they are and do more with less by utilizing technology. So we're getting, Mr. Cubine, on your question, we could see if a little extra incentive would make a difference. We feel pretty good about the natural progression with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the question is, have we basically got those people who are interested in doing it, and there's really not,
I think so.
there's still people out there, but they're not gonna come for $5 or $10?
I think so.
Or is there another bump that would get more people?
I think so. The only way I think to really push people to paperless is to charge for a paper bill. And specifically, it costs us $200,000 a year to send out a paper bill. We're going to recoup that in a fee. And you might have some people start to come over, but I don't know if the appetite's there for that. So.
Yeah.
I'm not making that motion.
No.
I'll tell you that right now.
Catherine, you wanna make that motion?
No.
No.
But to follow up on the paperless, and this is just off the top of my head, but if we at some point can look into the issue of, if you're paperless, a guarantee of a notification when you have an out of bounds usage. I I think we could do better with that, just from personal experience, and I think that might talk to some people that are saying, no, I need that paper bill because I gotta eyeball it, and I'm not always gonna go on that portal, and I don't wanna get 2 months down the road with a huge water bill because my line broke in my yard and I don't know about it.
Right.
So if we could look at, some kind of safety net like that so that customers know they'll get an email or a flag if, they're out of bounds in their typical usage, like within a certain margin. You know, you were saying the highlights of this budget, which I would totally agree, which is, you know, the debt reduction and our capital projects. But as our chairman pointed out, I think the other highlight is investing more in our employees, and that's basically gonna save us money in the long run, especially with some of our positions that are just getting poached once they become productive. It's just, you know, throwing money away. So I think that's the other highlight of this, that we are investing in employees and kind of catching up, and doing some things that we had kind of put on the burner for the last few years. So I do think that's a highlight. Just some more minor issues, if maybe you can kind of talk through the investing in an electric vehicle, potentially an electric truck now that that's just come on the market. The status of our charging stations and what that looks like for the budget. I mean, I don't think the plant board has to supply every charging station, but we are the leaders, and to incentivize people to go electric on vehicles is important, that they've got to have some place to charge it. And particularly, I did have a question about whether we had one budgeted for here, a charging station, and if it didn't get built, like, where is that money? And then the other item that I had been interested in and was if there is going to be a community solar project, that maybe we should take the reins at studying that. We've got the North Carolina study that we can utilize. So my concern was just that if during this fiscal year the board decides to, do another study, our own internal study. I mean, from what I've read, that always starts with a survey in your community, because a lot of the community municipal solar projects are done on a subscription basis, and some actually literally sell out, before that community solar field is built, whether it be owned by the utility or through a power purchase agreement, which is sometimes beneficial if your nonprofit utility can't take advantage of the federal tax incentives or the debt that reduction that is part of those incentives, I guess. Anyway, I just wanted to make sure, and if the answer is, and it sounds like it might be the answer, that we can do that in-house, the first phase of that study, which is at least to do to take the temperature of interest in something, perhaps like a subscription basis, then that's great. I just didn't want to get into this fiscal year and us get to that and say, oh, we'd like to start that study, and we either don't have the capability in-house or we don't have funds for that. Although there are, at least in the past, I don't know if they still exist, are some ways to get that assistance for free.
Well, I think we have the consulting firm of Kathy Lindsay and Travis and Associates.
Yes.
Who could be up to the task. Kathy, I know, is in the building, and I'll say that before she can get down here and get to me, so. But I think as far as, I would think at least for the survey, we've got that capability in-house. And we've talked about it, we've got some money in the board training budget that I'm not sure if we'll use it, we didn't use last year, And we could probably free up a little money there if we need just a little, money to fund that, and fund it that way. So that's just throwing it out, and then, I know that was at the end, but maybe just to talk about it, I know, Catherine, you were interested in the possibility of evaluating in terms of future vehicle needs here. And I was thinking a way to address that might simply be that we ask staff that anytime we replace a vehicle, that we include in that analysis, is there a more energy efficient source that can meet that need? Now, from what and I'm way out of my, I doubt there's many electric options to replace a Ford F-450.
Yeah, we're not this year.
Big truck. But in terms of our lighter duty trucks, SUVs, lighter duty pickups, I think we could do that and look at what's available, what the price is, what's available, durability, what do we need, and then take a look as vehicles come up, take a look on a vehicle by vehicle basis. Does that kind of address what you were interested in, Catherine?
Yes, and I know obviously in our 5-year budget, you all thought ahead to know which vehicles are probably going to be at their end of their life cycle, and budgeted in replacement. And I was kind of interested in a comparison of, because I know there's going to be a difference, although there are tax rebates. You don't know if they're going to be phased out by them or not, but to kind of see what that looks like if we kind of embark on trying to do electric as we phase out.
Well, there's definitely a difference on price, but also the electrics, though, as I understand it, are cheaper in terms of maintenance. Once you get the vehicle in service, I think they're cheaper to maintain than a regular gas motor in a truck or whatever. Steve?
Yeah, just responding to what Catherine said with those. One, there is a new all-electric Ford F.
Yeah, one
Like that,
light.
it was supposedly stronger than their strongest. But I do think that as we replace vehicles, that we should take a strong look at electric. And I'll couple that with the question I ask every year is, what proceeds we get from the sale of surplus property? And if that money, I know the year I asked was like 30,000 or something like that, that could go toward the difference between the cost of the electric vehicle and a gas vehicle. The other thing, the charging stations for me, I'm for the charging station. I just have one problem with the charging station, and it's really not something that we control. It is that they're free to the people that have to charge their cars. And I think, that is unfair to the people who can't afford an electric car and have to go out here and buy gas at whatever the price may be. That the charging stations are essentially free for whoever has a electric car. I'm all for 'em being around. I just think there should be some type of charge to use them, and it can be under whatever the going rate is. It just seems something's not right about it being free to the people who would normally be buying an electric car versus the people who would normally be driving a gas car.
And Vint, when they're on the current charging stations, the city is paying that electric, right?
That's correct.
Have we had any indication from the city of their interest to go, how many we have now total?
We have 3.
We have 3 total.
Yeah.
Have we had one, I know we had problems looking at data, and you've provided us some data. We had problems looking at data because of the COVID. A lot of the areas there wasn't as much tourist traffic or visitors or whatever.
Right.
Have we had any indication from the city if they're interested in
No,
expanding it or doing more, or where they'd like them, or?
No, I think we were kind of waiting to see what the board wanted to do. If the board wanted, which we currently have in the budget, is I think it's an additional $60,000 you could put right at 3 more stations in for that amount of money. So if the board was to approve that, then we would approach the city and see if they wanted to participate again by the, and Hans, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but my legal understanding is we're not allowed to give the electricity away for free. So if the city wants to pay for those charges, we can offer it free as we're currently doing. If the city does not want to continue that, and as Mr. Mason is discussing there, if we want to go ahead and charge that electric at its normal cost of service, that's a pretty easy change for us to do with the charters that we have in place. So.
And then ask this, Dawn, you had an idea for something on the since we now jumped to the end of the agenda, Mr. Denton? We've gone from general to end of the agenda, and then we'll be looking at adjournment. No, Dawn, you wanna?
Oh, well, do you have any idea, just still on the charging stations, you mentioned having 3 in the budget, where you're gonna place those 3 charging stations?
We have the 3 downtown. Generally our plans, where we had talked about before, was someplace on the western side of town and the eastern side of town. Would be 2 of them, and that would kind of balance them out as far as the offerings across town. But honestly, we would bring that to the board, and
They need to be somewhere
See what
where
they
people are
want
gonna be parked for 30 or 40 minutes or whatever to get really any
Right.
usage out of.
yeah, I mean, some of the shopping centers, there's that debate, should you get them off the interstate? They come off the interstate. If you put them on the east and west side of towns off those exits somewhere, and you're close to shopping areas, then folks might stop there. And that was kind of our idea originally when we were talking. I think we planned locations for about 2 more, but if the board approves it in the budget, we'll be more than happy to bring that item to the board and give you all some options of what we think's available, and let you pick and choose what you want.
I mean, on that topic, I mean, if you have an electric vehicle and you're traveling from state to state or whatever, you literally look at a map and you plan where you're gonna fill up and what you do during that time. So, I mean, it'd be kinda great if the business, like if we put it in the shopping center at, wherever, Walmart or that maybe they can help out, because you're literally bringing people
A restaurant
there.
or wherever somebody's gonna park.
And they're
go
gonna
and
need
eat
to
and-
do something for a couple hours or however long it takes to charge.
Steve?
No, I agree, I agree with that. I was just thinking, if the developer of those properties, probably would say, well, we won't charge you rent for using our property,
Yeah.
but you're right, I think they should be used as an attraction to generate business.
And then Dawn, you had another idea you wanted.
Yeah, but before I get to that.
Okay.
When we were talking about the raises and the 2%, David, I think we got something from you earlier saying that the CPI at the end of April was 4-point-something%. And I know you don't have the crystal ball, but do you have any idea what the CPI is probably gonna end up with at the end of the year?
I really don't. I mean, you've got a post-pandemic boom. Supply chain issues are causing a lot of it, so it's really hard to tell. I think if you really go into that you're talking about the all items CPI, if you go into the individual items, there's some that are much more above 4%. You're really getting hit with fuel and groceries, used vehicles. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
everybody
just
doesn't buy a house every year, but everybody's buying groceries, gas,
Right.
and those things, yeah.
Yeah, I just think if we're looking at what the raise we're gonna give,
Mhm.
and we're talking about 2%, if the CPI at the end of the year ends up being 4 or so, we might want to reconsider.
And David priced that out for us, what is it, 93,000 per 0.5%?
Yes, sir.
And that's both salary, fringe,
Right.
retirement, social security, everything.
Right. It's something important to remember. Just the Kentucky retirement alone is 27 cents of every payroll dollar is going to KRS. So
And you
that's-
have social security, so that really takes it up to about 35-36% combined.
Yeah, I don't know, I just think it's
Yeah.
something we might just want to keep in mind somewhere there. But the idea I had is we have money set aside for energy audits. And I had asked earlier, and I think maybe Travis has done some research on the people that have had the energy audits, if they have actually had the work done that the audit suggests. And so I was wondering if we could hear that. And then 2, I thought the energy audits don't really help people that are renting, because it's up to the property owner to make whatever correction needs to be made. And people sometimes don't have the money, just plain out, to put more insulation in their house or new windows or whatever needs to be done. And so in trying to think of something that actually would benefit the ratepayers, if they could actually see some reduction of their bill, I wondered if we could take possibly some of the money that we have set aside for energy audits and make available LED lights and water-saving shower heads and kitchen faucet water savers. And I spoke with someone from the women's shelter, and I didn't speak to anyone from the men's shelter, but I'm sure it's the same. You know, the women's shelter doesn't replace bulbs with LEDs because they only replace what is has been donated to them. And so that would, you know, we would have an opportunity to help the nonprofits in town if we made available LED light bulbs. And the women's shelter, I think, if I remember correctly, they have 6 bathrooms that they're, you know, dealing with. So there again, they could see a real savings in their water bill if they had the water saving shower heads and kitchen faucets. And we have our ratepayers appreciation day, or whatever we call it, which we didn't do last year because of COVID, but we've given out LED light bulbs at that. And I don't know if it would be something that we would want to give out the shower heads and things at our customer appreciation day, or I don't know how the rest of you all feel about it. But I just thought that was a way for people to actually see a reduction on their bill and to save the resources of electricity and water. So
The charging stations are what, 20,000 apiece?
The charging stations, yes, are a little bit more than 20,000 apiece. I think that's installed.
So, okay, and then energy audits, how much do we have budgeted?
There's
40?
20,000.
20,000 new dollars.
Yes, sir. Well, I guess you could say we didn't spend all of it. In this budget year, there's 20,000.
And then
Left
in the new
over.
budget,
Yeah,
how much is in the new budget, the proposed budget for energy audits?
20,000.
Okay,
Yeah.
so basically rolling into next year, we got 40,000 of, well, no, because that dropped to the bottom line.
Yeah, we just went with, I don't know if it's exactly what was remaining, but it's close to the, I think we started with 50 and we're down, we rolled 20,000 into this 22 fiscal year is what's the total.
Because I think I'd mentioned to Gary and to you, I actually wondered with what Travis did, and what Travis did for us here, showing that the 2 major areas that we recommended to people were insulation and weather stripping, which are two pretty low, especially the weather stripping, are really low-cost options. And I know at one point we'd had a discussion about even transferring the energy audit program to Bluegrass Community Action, who runs weatherization and gets the state LIHEAP money to do it. And if we transfer it to them and they could only spend our money on Franklin County residents, and they couldn't supplant money they're currently spending in Franklin County, so they couldn't reduce the amount here and then spend somewhere else, they'd have to use our money as an addition. Bluegrass would have the ability to both do the audit and do the work. Because that's what they do. I mean, they follow up and do the work, so people could get the audit and get the energy savings done for them, which kind of gets both things addressed. It gets people to audit. Bluegrass would do any eligibility, so it'd be targeted to, you know, people with lower incomes, and they could get the work done. I just throw that out for, and I'm not sure how big that program is, but I know Bluegrass, the community actions have been doing it for years, so. And then would we want to, if we got 60, we could do 60 for the charging, or we could do 40 for the charging and then 20,000 for what Dawn's interested in, or maybe could we add another 20 for what Dawn's, I mean, I'm just throwing this out just as.
yeah, I looked online to see how much the water saving shower heads were, and I think the top of the line was about $39.95.
Does that include tax?
Didn't figure tax in there. And then the kitchen faucet again was fluctuated from $10 to $34.99. So
And how much are the bulbs?
about the same, between $10.
For how many does that get you?
Well, when I did a $80 for both kitchen and faucet, and for the 20,000, it got you what, 250, I think.
That you could do everything for them?
Right.
A faucet, a shower head, and some bulbs?
No, I didn't figure in bulbs.
Okay.
I
What do you
mean,
think?
both of the ideas are good ideas. I mean, but to the charging stations, you know, the city determined where I think
Mhm.
those locations were on the charging stations when we did it the first time. And again, I go back to, you know, if they let everyone in it free, you know, then, I mean, I go along with it, but it's a bad feeling to think that, you know, the people that can afford a electric car are the ones that are.
Making that, but the city's making that determination
No,
out of their
right,
budget,
that's
so,
why I'm
you
saying
know.
it's publicly, it's
Right.
not, that's why I said it's not our control to do that. I'm not sure the additional ones that we're talking about, are we talking about following the same path with what we did with the city, or doing something different? Again, not that great a deal for me, but it is a thought that, you know, it's, you know, you put them around to where everyone who can afford to, you know, at least the people that can afford fuel are the ones that have to pay for it.
Yeah.
What kind of direction do we want to give staff on the charging, the energy audits, and Dawn's idea?
My thought is, I think we should want to look at the charging stations and kind of put them, look at out there in those shopping centers close.
Where people come in, maybe spend some money.
Spend some money,
Spend some
yeah.
money. You know, I like both of y'all's ideas as it relates to the energy audit. So I guess I would need help.
So, I mean, I don't know that we need to take a motion, but in terms of some, like I was telling John before we started here, we're doing budget language now. We turned this budget in about 500 pages, bunch of language.
John, I've got a
Yes, sir.
comment, and maybe just a couple of things. I really, really like your idea of working with Bluegrass Community Action. I think that will get us, I think, more bang for our buck. If we can go to Bluegrass Community Action and say, you know, we can get this done here. We can get you to help folks in Franklin County, and you know that are our electric customers. You know, more say, if we can get them to do that and then turn around and actually get the work done, then those folks might see some savings, and it's a targeted population that really needs the help. You know, was the question ever answered about, was there ever a budgeted charging station for us here at FPB? I don't recall that.
We had talked about it, I think, in those original group of stations.
Uh-huh. But
I
it
don't- I
just
don't
never
think
came
it
to fruition.
made the
Okay.
cut or whatever.
The other thing, Dawn's idea, I think, has some merit, but then again, too, want to make sure that it falls to those folks. You know, I wouldn't just want to hand these out to anybody who got an energy audit, no matter, you know, whether they were in Two Creeks or, you know, wherever. You know, I think we want to try to target that help wherever we can. That'd be my suggestion.
My initial idea had been like in public housing and in low-income
The
apartment
shelters, like you said, and that kind of
complexes
stuff,
and
yeah.
things. But when I started looking at, because in a previous life I worked in Section 8 housing. And when I looked at some of the apartment complexes, water is included in the rent. So the individual tenants aren't paying for water. So that sort of made me rethink the idea. And when I talked to the person at the housing authority, and he said they put LED lights in as they turn over units. And he said the water pressure was low there, and he really didn't think that the
low flow stuff.
low flow
Okay.
would be good for there.
Okay.
The one thing about the energy audit money, just to bring up, the energy audits are paid for out of the electric budget, as you would think they should be. If we're trying to transfer that money into water faucets and
Okay.
shower heads, that probably would need to be some of that either come out of the water department or change. I'm not trying to say don't do
Right.
any of those things at all. I'm just saying we would probably need to designate money from the water department if we were gonna do those kind of things involving water.
Okay, so let me just run through it. We've got Bluegrass Community Action asked staff to explore the ability of transferring the energy audit with the provision also that they make the repairs for the people, and that it would truly add to the money in Franklin County, not replace it or supplant it. The charging stations confirm with the city if they're interested, and that we'd like them located in areas where it would generate or increase economic activity in the community.
Mr.
Ener-
Chairman, I
Yes,
could
sir.
ask a question on that one. If they were not interested in participating, the cost difference to us would be no difference because then it would just be charged to the customer. So it wouldn't affect our budget beyond, I guess is what I'm
If we
saying.
want-
Whether or not the city participates wouldn't change our budget. We would then charge for those stations.
Okay, and so
And
then it
so-
wouldn't be,
The customer,
And I would be, actually, I would kinda like for it to be for.
I guess what I'm saying, if you wanted to do charging stations, our only legal options are the city's gonna pay for it or we have to charge the customer. So it wouldn't affect the plant board's budget either way there.
And would it just be city or could it be county?
Yeah, if the county wanted to participate, as long as another entity, like a government entity, would pay, we just can't give away the utilities. So
Right.
that would be,
If we place them in a shopping center, could the shopping center pay the electric bill for it? Since they'd be generating more foot traffic for the shopping center?
one thing, possibly, the one
And
thing I wonder
I'm leading
about
you
is-
down a road you never thought
Well,
you'd be
the
led
instant
down.
thing I would think is maybe tons of them say, well, I wanna do it. Why are you
Okay.
picking this shopping center? We had a few people when we started to talk about this said, well, why would you pick their shopping center over my shopping center? And so you start to run into that. I'm not saying they couldn't, though. We'd have to investigate
I
that.
mean, realistically, I could see someone
Beat them out.
recognizing it takes a little bit of time to charge. I mean, I could see, like, say Kroger's,
Yeah.
saying we wouldn't mind having one, because people likely are gonna be in Kroger's 30 or 40 minutes.
Right.
And we got Kroger's at either end of town. We got Walmart's got a grocery and a, I mean, I guess that'd be a good problem to have. If,
Maybe, but the plant board's paying about $20-some thousand, and if you have 50 retailers all line up,
Yeah.
we don't have enough money to.
Well, maybe some will pay.
I
To
said
build
that facetiously under my breath,
Yeah,
but
that's true.
we could bid this out if we wanted to. So, if someone wants to defray the cost of doing it, maybe we can put some
Well,
yeah,
others
sure,
somewhere.
that's
and it could be like the EVB program.
Yeah,
We say we got 3 this year, when they're gone, they're gone. Next year, we start a new cycle,
yep.
start all, I mean,
But are people traveling actually gonna come and then go shop at Kroger's to, I mean,
well, the one thing I like about the Kroger's is, that'd be, for our local residents,
right,
that'd be something that would benefit people in this community who were going to store, they'd be paying for their electricity. And,
Yeah, as far as the Kroger's though, and this is probably getting too specific, they have gas station.
yes,
And really, they should be thinking about adding an electric charging station to
Yep.
their own gas stations.
Yep.
A lot of the shopping centers not only have retail, but they have restaurants. So you
Right.
could do several things and, but anyway.
Yeah, the one advantage to how we were doing it before, we were kind of picking city streets and parks and things.
Yeah.
That was the general idea originally. I'm not saying it has to continue that way, but I think that was the original plan, was not try to favor a specific business or something, but try to pick places that were, that there may be businesses, let's take downtown, there's lots of businesses around, but you were actually parking on city streets, for instance. But we can investigate all those. We can bring agenda items to the board if it's in the budget and put up various options and let the board go back and forth. And again, it's just a budget discussion, so we can.
well, here's the 6 items I've got. I got the Bluegrass CA, I got the charging station, see if the city wants to assume, and if the city doesn't want to assume, we could assume, and we could charge.
Add county to that.
Add county, yes. Energy savings, add $20,000, David, for energy savings, what Dawn's talking about. And I think what we need to flesh out is what would be the entity that would administer that. I don't think we want to get in the business of, but is there a host agency program that could operate that for us and get us out of the,
That'd be Bluegrass Community.
yeah, Bluegrass, yeah.
They would have money to do some of the audits, and then you're giving them money to do some of the upgrades.
What was that agency set up during the COVID? Is this still running? I think it was a state org and then it was a local organization.
That gave the utility assistance?
They help people, I don't know what kind of help.
Bluegrass was one of them, was the other one, the governor had that program
But there was a county, a city version of that stakeholder assistance.
Yeah, the mayor had some money, didn't he? That he used for energy assistance or for cutoffs or
I got a
for,
letter for, request for a donation.
oh, is that right?
Isn't that the foundation, that they have, the city?
Mhm.
I'm just thinking that might be a
Mm.
vehicle for which, this could flow through with that.
And then community solar, we're gonna do the internal survey. And you're gonna take the lead on that, Catherine, working with Kathy and Travis. Then raises, tentatively at this point, 2% or whichever the city is higher, and we'll know more, hopefully here very, John.
And John, I've got a question about that thing. David, this 0.5% calculation of $93,000 and change, I was asking John
Yeah.
beforehand, and he wasn't sure either. That calculation assumes all of the changes we made with the increase in the moving in the salary schedule and the elimination of the lower salary grades and the other stuff we're doing, all the other, that 0.5% cost is inclusive of all those changes. Is that correct? You understand what I'm asking?
I think so. This is, when you get into these types of things, it's always setting the assumptions is right.
Right.
What we looked at was what are the base wages when we're leaving this current fiscal year, 21, and walking into next year in
Right.
July. We looked at the base wages, as that was 13.8, and said on the first 0.5%, what does that cost?
So this was for any of the adjustments
This
to
is
alignment.
before,
So I-
this is
so-
for any alignment adjustments or telecom and star adjustments or the moving of the pay grades or the shifting, the shifting of the pay grades we're
That's
doing?
before. This is
That's before
as
all
people
that.
sit right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So
So
if
it's
you-
gonna end up being a little bit more than that, probably.
It would if you, depending on where you start from. So if you were to
Right.
put those things on top, then yes, it is higher than that
Okay.
number.
So it may be closer to 100,000 for 0.5% rather than 93,000.
It's definitely
so-
north of the 93 we
Okay,
gave.
okay, good. Okay, John, that was all.
Oh, no, yeah.
Clarification on that.
And then, also, Steve, I think you want to
Yeah,
look at on the midpoint, cap out at a certain grade level?
Yeah, I think we need to explore, at least look at exploring a cap on the 2 and 2, which is below the midpoint. And I just put out on the table, I'll just be my Andy Scrooge, that I think our pay rate should be the mirror whatever Frankfurt did.
Mhm.
That's just where I'm at. Yeah.
And then we'll ask Michelle to come back next time and kind of look at on the below the midpoint January, what would be the grade level or salary level or whatever that might top out at or whatever? Is that what you wanted to?
Yeah.
Okay. And then cars, every car, when we replace cars on a replacement schedule, cars or trucks, which Catherine is to evaluate each of those based on not only acquisition costs, but energy savings, maintenance, and which one makes sense, and is there electric or hybrid vehicles that in fact can do the same work of a gasoline vehicle or replace them?
Yeah.
Okay.
But that does then go back to the question of if we start having those in our fleet,
Mhm.
where are we charging them if we don't have one here?
We'd have to at least put a charging station, probably down on Myrtle, is where it would probably need to be.
Yeah, if we do a vehicle replacement, we will have to have one charger. Basically, every time we add a vehicle, we're gonna have to add a charger because the vehicles would have to be charged every night.
The cost you're talking about, Vint, the cost per charger, 23, can there be multiple vehicles charged off that?
No, the chargers for our own trucks wouldn't have to be metered, they wouldn't have any of that kind of stuff. These would just come out of our panel boxes. They're about $1,000 for the 240 volt
Okay.
chargers, which take about 8 or 9 hours to charge.
Okay.
If we wanted to do high-speed chargers, they get to all kind of different levels, significantly higher than that. But the problem with that is if you charge a truck with a high-speed charger every night, it's gonna kill the battery.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and the good thing is, I mean, our vehicles aren't traveling long distances.
it's not really the distance that's the problem, it's they're running all the
Oh.
time.
They're idle,
And
yeah.
they're idling and they're constantly going from place to place and you're out 10 minutes.
Kind of like police cars, they're always,
The bigger thing, when we get into those conversations on a vehicle-by-vehicle basis, is what's their use for, because
Mhm.
you have to think of our ice storms and windstorms and water outages. The truck may not turn off for 2 days, and you don't have time to charge them, you don't have we'll work 48
Yeah.
hours straight, and there's no point to the vehicle. So, again, those are conversations for when we
develop that criteria.
Yeah, we can do all that, exactly what I think you're proposing, a vehicle by vehicle investigation is the way to do it, because some vehicles they work for right now, some they won't, but I guarantee you, a year from now, 2 years from now, technology is gonna keep on changing,
Yeah.
you know? So more and more options will be available as we move forward.
So we got 6 tentative kind of direction points at this point.
Miss-
Anything else? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I had something that I'd forgotten about.
Okay.
And it's something we've talked about previously, but we haven't talked about recently, and that's public Wi-Fi. Where are we with public Wi-Fi in the parks and downtown and things? And I know one day I went around just sort of testing our public Wi-Fi, or just seeing it. And I noticed that, like in Dolly Graham and the one over in Bell Point and downtown, there was nothing saying that public Wi-Fi was available there.
Yeah,
And-
because you made the motion to put up some signage or whatever.
Yeah, and so I just wondered where we were with, particularly like with the, all the work that they've done at Dolly Graham, and I think they're redoing the fence, et cetera. You know, I think we need to have better signage to say that public Wi-Fi is available, because it's a real benefit that we're offering there. So I just wondered where we were with that.
Look who's on the screen.
Yeah, I bet he can tell us.
Hello. Yeah, with the COVID, you know, a lot of stuff we had planned for parks last year, we didn't get a chance to complete. And like with Dolly Graham, they were going through, you know, redoing the park. And so some of that stuff we need to go back in and clean up. The other thing we're trying to do is some of our first deployment is change that out to a newer system that's more universal, that will just be a better system to use across the board. And so our next budget year, we have $25,000. We have some equipment that we purchased this year out of this year's budget that we haven't installed yet just because of everything going on. But that'll get installed, and I think we have, it might be $35,000 earmarked for next year that we're going to redo some downtown areas. And one of our first Wi-Fi areas that we've done was the farmers market. And we have been working with them trying to resolve some issues because of the train tracks and trying to get some facilities in that area. So we're hoping to spend some money to upgrade that as well. As far as signage, since the parks are starting to come back up, I can get with Kathy and we can get some signage out, and so people know that it's available. I think some of the signage we first put up was kind of temporary and we took down, but since things are starting to open back up, we can add some more signage to those areas.
So are we, Adam, right now, are we like a Juniper, Lakeview, Capitol View, Dolly?
We have the
Graham?
equipment for Lakeview right now. We have it installed, but we do have that equipment available. We're looking at part of East Frankfort Park, and right now Jennifer Hills kind of has their own city Wi-Fi, and so I've kind of talked with Bobby Rippey in the past to see if we can do something, but they kind of have their own thing up there by the pool. So that one's kind of unknown yet.
How about Capitol View? The ball fields down there by the river.
We do not have anything there. We're trying to work on actually providing some connectivity as that park develops and people are more invested in it. We'll try to add that to the list.
In the budget, there's, like he said, there's 2025 going forward. We have money in the budget every year going forward in the 5-year plan, up through 35,000 each year. So we do have monies to continue that project.
And generally, David had talked to us generally about the debt plan, and the customer rebate is generally, everybody, in terms of here proceeding, are we generally, anything else, David, at this point that you've covered that you need some general direction? I mean, we're not taking a vote today, we're just telling him if we got a problem, he needs to know it, and if we have some additional direction or whatever, he needs to know it so he can. Kevin?
I just want to verify, for moving forward with the EBB program, there is no additional cost we need to put into the budget?
No, we've got all the internal, we're going to utilize existing.
Kentucky Municipal Utilities Association. It was formerly MEPAC, the electric folks, and they moved to include other utilities in there. That association proposed some dues increases this year. There were two options available. There was either going to be a one-time 20% increase or a staggered 5% increase over the next several years. One of the chief reasons for this was the large increase in the director of that association belongs to, I believe, KERS. And there was a significant increase in that, and they were not, the General Assembly looked at that, and since that KMUA really isn't a service agency, it's more of an advocacy agency, they did not make any exceptions or exemptions or concessions to us as the organization to kind of soften that blow. So it's going to be a pretty significant increase in our pension costs for that position. That kind of led a kind of a little question and answer session regarding KMUA, its operations, its governance, and not only that, but FPB's role in the organization. We had not had a lot of leadership available in that organization, or not taken an active role in that. After a lot of discussions, Gary has been placed on the executive committee of KMUA. We were also given the opportunity to have FPB staff serve on several of the committees of KMUA, including the legislative committees for water and wastewater, electric and natural gas, and telecommunications. Now, the dues for this year's budget, the dues for this year, for the bill we're going to get ready to get in June for the next year, that's already in this budget. The year we're in now, not the budget we've been talking about over the last hour and a half or so. So that's been approved. That's going to get paid, and I don't have an issue with that. What I would suggest, and this may be a little bit of a radical kind of departure, I would suggest that we not put the dues for the bill we're going to receive in June of 2022 into the budget this year. This gives us a chance to gauge our experience with KMUA, make sure that these concessions we've gotten, we're going to talk to them about their operations, about their lobbying, how they get stuff out, and we'll go through this legislative session and see if things kind of improve on our end. And then at about this time next year, we can amend the budget in order to do that. That would be my suggestion to approach this situation this time. I think they deserve a chance after the concessions they made to see how those concessions work. I'm going to depend heavily on Gary. I know he'll appoint good people to the subcommittees, and he'll be able to gauge some reaction on how that organization works. So that would be my suggestion. Gary, are you okay with that line of thought?
Sure.
Good. And if anybody has any questions,
Does that send a negative message, though? If we're not putting the dues for next year in this budget, does that send a negative connotation that we are really, what we're really doing is looking at not doing it again? I think I would rather have the dues in the budget, and then we decide at the end of next year, after reevaluating, rather than making a budget amendment and it not being there and people being able to say, why didn't you put it in this year's budget then?
To me, it makes the point that we're not particularly satisfied with the representation we're getting from the organization, and I think it does send a strong message. But I think it's a message that needs to be sent. That's just my opinion.
I think they've gotten the hint.
We'll see. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Whatever the pleasure of the board is.
Yeah.
But
the other way you could do it is we could put it in, but then say it cannot be paid without a specific approval of the board next June, which means you still got to have a vote to release it. That's not an automatic payment. That the money's, you don't have to then put money in, but the money's there, but you can't pay it without approval. It's got to come back to the board for approval.
I'm more comfortable with that than just not putting it in.
Finding
at all.
30,000 is not going to be. That's
Sure.
in the scheme of things.
Right.
In June, during closeout, that's not going to be the end of the world.
Right.
But I think John's point, is that I think a lot of good things have happened in the last several months regarding that, and we had talked about possibly did we even want to hire a part-time person, not to lobby, but to review stuff
Track
for us.
stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and the goal is not to do that, I think.
Right.
I think, Catherine, you actually talked about several months ago, no decision was made on that. That was something we talked about this October. I think the assumption is we don't want to go that route.
Right.
But I think the question is that, that the board, I think what John's talking about is that the board wants to revisit it in June, one way or the other.
Yeah, I'm fine. I think, Dawn, your suggestion, to me, it's a distinction without that much of a difference. What John said, the idea of us taking some sort of affirmative action to pay our dues for the 2022-23 year, that was where I was getting at. That's the suggestion I have.
Chairman, I think it's also an honest message. And you also don't want them to think, and be surprised next year, should we make the decision, and the other members. So I think it's just being transparent into what we're thinking.
Yeah.
What's your all's pleasure, which way you want to go? We've got John's report. We kind of need direction for Dave, because right now for 2022 budget, the new budget, the 30,000 is sitting in there.
Yes, sir, it is there, across 3 divisions.
So we either remove it and then take it up in June, or we leave it and then put budget language in that it comes back before the board when the invoice comes for a decision whether to make the payment or not.
I mean, I can live with that compromise.
Yeah, I'm fine with the compromise as well. So I'll go ahead and amend the suggestion, make them direct the staff to put the money for the 22-23 dues into the FY22 budget, but with the stipulation that money has to be specifically approved by board action prior to its being expended. So if you would do that, David, I think, is everybody else in agreement on that? And I don't want to jump on your toes there, John. But
No,
I'm fine.
that's what I think we all, like you said, I think we all want to get to the same point. We want to continue the progress, but we don't want it to be automatic next year. We want to have that discussion again and revisit it.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay? So we don't have to vote. It's just, that's, David, just that provision in there. Okay? That brings us to electric.
Yes, we have staff ready to jump in and give a little summary, if you would like, for each department division, however you'd like to go, sir.
Is that the way y'all want to? Does everybody want to take a break for about 10 minutes?
Sounds good.
We'll come back in 10 minutes? Okay. We're at recess or at ease or whatever for 10 minutes. This is the June 2nd special meeting of the Frankfurt Planning Board where we're working on doing a work session on the budget. We've come back from just a short break and we're back in session. So Vint, you want to start us with electric?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I've got Scott Hudson, the electric superintendent, and I have Travis McCullough, the chief electrical engineer, with us today, and they're gonna go through the electric budget. They're gonna hit the highlights if that's the board's pleasure.
Yes.
Just hit the things they think are really important. If you have any specific questions on anything, don't hesitate to ask them, but if you're fine, I won't have them go into a lot of
Okay.
detail. We'll keep it brief.
Is it okay with everybody to go that way? Okay.
Okay, guys, cheer on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and fellow board members. As you want to turn to page 17 in your draft budget, that would be where we're going to start it real quick. On page 17 is capital addition. This is going to kind of go with what Mr. Denton talked about. The first slide of the day is reliability and system maintenance. And of course, our capital is heavily laden part of that. I was just going to mention the three big projects we got coming up in this next budget year. If you look at, as I said, page 17, line number 10, you'll see that's where we're replacing the substation at Reservoir Substation. Then if you skip on down to to line 40, you'll see we got about $3.7 million in our AMI project, which Mr. Travis McCullough will talk about here briefly just a second. And then on line 80, this is where we're talking about our $2.3 million spending towards Capitol Plaza Substation. And as we talked about earlier, you all asked about the vehicle charging stations. This is where you'll find that money in a lot of the budget also is on page 1785, line 85. You'll see where we have the money for the electric charging stations. And I'll let Travis now talk about the AMI project.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll be very brief on AMI because we've discussed it quite a bit lately. I don't think there's necessarily a whole lot of new updates beyond. We've gotten to the point now where we have completed our pilot install, or I should say probably about 90% completed on the pilot installation. That part of the project's gone very well. Where we are right now today, we're kind of keeping an eye on the chip shortage issue and keeping an eye on equipment lead times to make sure when we set that firm start date for full system-wide deployment, we know we're going to have enough material in the pipeline to keep us going. So as of right now, we're looking at probably an August start date for the full system deployment. Again, we're keeping an eye on the material lead times to make sure we don't get out ahead of ourselves on that. But as far as AMI goes, aside from watching material shortages, we think the project's going really well, and we hope this budget year with the funding we have reserved, we should be nearly complete. Any AMI questions?
If there's no questions, we'll move on then. We'll go to our expense side of the budget. If you want to kind of skim to page 23, and I'll start on page 23. And, we kept our expenses pretty much the same as we had in the past couple of years. As line expense there is in the electric budgets, our tree trimming, and it's at $960,000 this year. Our past current budget is $775,000, and we spend roughly about $19,000 a week. So we're on track to spend our full budget amount that we budgeted for 21. So, and of course, with the tree trimmers, they get a cost of living based upon the contract. So that was the slight increase from last year's budget to this year's budget, just to accommodate for their cost of living raise. And really, the only other thing I was just going to point out, because you've talked about it quite a bit here recently, is on page 24. If you look down at the line 565, you'll see that's where we have our money for our energy efficiency, which we talked about earlier, and I know we're going to be making some changes to that. But if there's anything really that you all looked at that you have questions or concerns about the expenses, I'll be more than happy to answer those.
Any other questions? And then for the electric, Scotty, to you or Vint or Travis, then, and built into this budget is the adjustments where we're going to deal with the electric linemen and the salaries for recruitment and retention, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Any other questions on electric? Hans?
I was gonna say.
Hans, you can't ask questions.
I just have a special request that's been piped in. If everyone could check their microphones and make sure they're on, we're having
Yeah.
some trouble picking everybody up. So make sure your little green light is lit up
Okay.
there. If you're speaking, if your green light's on, then yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Correct. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, next is, water.
So for water, I have David Billings. He's our Director of Water Operations and also our Chief Water Engineer. And we have Brian Bourne, the Water Superintendent, and Julie Roney, the Superintendent of the Water Treatment Plant. So they will go through their pieces. Again, the water treatment and water distribution are kind of dovetailed into one budget. You'll see them broken out, but we all consider that the water budget. So I don't know which one of you is going to start, but go ahead.
I'll start out first. Good afternoon, Board. I'll talk a little bit about some of the revenues, historical trends we've been looking and following, the copper service that we have planned, and some future rate increases that are planned in the 5-year budget. Then I'll go over a large capital projects, mainly consisting of the reservoir. Then Ms. Roney can talk about large water treatment plant projects and initiatives she has on page 28, and then Brian Bourne can do the same. Then all three of us combined can answer questions about exceptions on statement of revenue and expenses on page 27. So let me begin by talking about our revenue projections that you see on pages 27, beginning at line 5 through 45. You will notice that both residential city and county residential are trending up. That's primarily due to COVID. Commercial city is trending down. We also suspect that's due to COVID. Commercial county is trending up. Industrial is also trending up. Wholesale is trending down. It's primarily due to one water customer. And wholesale with production is also slightly trending up. Overall, we see total system sales continue a slight downward trend, and we've seen this since FY09. Now we'll talk about local service study. Primarily due to the delay in construction of the reservoir, the Water Department suspended its annual incremental rate increases in 2019, with 2 planned rate increases remaining. The current budget plans for a cost of service study and rate design in year 1, followed by a 3.5% annual increase in years 2 through 5. The increases are projected to increase the revenue from $11.8 million to $13.5 million. You can see that on line 45. Additional revenue required. Talk a little bit about the reservoir. As you can see on pages 28, line 10, Reservoir Construction is budgeted at $7.45 million, along with an additional $235,000 for piping connections in the front and back, and as well as an estimated $15,000 for drain improvements under Tanglewood Drive. Any questions the board may have for me at this time before we move on?
Any questions?
I just have a quick, where in the budget dealing with the reservoir is for landscaping?
It's incorporated into that 7.45.
Okay, thanks.
John.
Yeah, John?
David, I just want to take a second to thank you. I had a citizen come to me with a concern regarding some of the demolition work and how it's impacting some of the trees in the area, and I was able to forward that message on to you all, and you actually had already understood what was going on. I think you had already talked to the contractor. Appreciate y'all handling that. And she said apparently there was a fence up the next day protecting those trees. I just want to thank you for being right on top of that.
Well, we appreciate that. We have to give some credit to the contractor. He was aware of the situation and working on the fence. Just the correspondence came in before that was able to be happening, but it was being worked on. I didn't want the board to know that.
Thank you.
So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Roney to talk about any large water treatment plant projects and initiatives she has on page 28.
All right, good afternoon. I guess I just want to point out 2 projects that will be happening in fiscal year 22. Those are on page 18, line 215, which is a SCADA project upgrade. We are still running on an approximately 13-year-old computer system out here, Windows 7, some outdated Rockwell Automation programming. So this is an opportunity to bring everything up to at least 2021 standards, and also upgrade some servers, some workstations, and our firewall. So this is badly needed out here at this time, and with everything that's going on in the world and a lot of this concerns on utility safety and security, it'll really go a long way to improving that out here. The other two items on our capital list are lines 275 and 280. We will begin our ammonia project in fiscal year 22. This will replace a hazardous gas chemical that we use out here for disinfection with a much safer liquid chemical. So this will be a lot safer for employees and the customers and the environment as a whole. Other things that we had planned on doing, we just kind of moved 1 year ahead. I really hated having to delay our lab renovation, but we did have to move that to 2023. Any questions on our capital budget?
What was the lab renovation? How much was it, and what was the need for it? And talk a little about that.
The lab is original. It's 50 years old. It has a lot of metal cabinets, and so if you can imagine metal in a water environment, they're starting to rust, they're falling apart. It's not laid out real well for what we need. We have been directed by the Division of Water and their lab certification folks to make some changes. So they're giving us the opportunity, to do that and take our time to get it done. But it's just one of the remaining rooms in the filter building that really needs an upgrade to make it more serviceable, give us a little more space to do the water quality tests that we need to do.
What's the cost on that?
It's about $170,000.
Which line is that?
That would be, it's $175,000. It's on line 230, Water Quality Laboratory. It was one of those projects that we could not do during the COVID because it involved a lot of people in and out of the building for roughly 2 months. And we were just not able to get that done.
And Julie, we're still doing good on acquisition of any chemicals, that there's no shortage of the
No.
ones we need?
No, we have been very fortunate. Anytime we've asked for a chemical to be delivered at a certain time, it's been here.
Great.
Julie, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself maybe a little bit, but when we do the lab renovation, will you all gut the entire thing at one time? Where will you have the other, the work that the lab does? How long is it going to take, and how's that work going to proceed while that renovation's going on?
Okay, any of our bacteriological work that we need to do during that time, we will be sending that out to a commercial lab. So
Okay.
we'll cover that. We can move a lot of the day-to-day lab testing equipment out of the lab into our foyer area
Okay.
out here at the plant, just run some electric. Because it's not going to be a very long project, we can just move some of the equipment to another location.
Okay. Good. Okay.
How long will the project take?
I'm not quite sure. We have been told about 2 months.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, if there aren't any more questions on the capital budget, if we want to move over to page 27, the water treatment plant, what I call the O&M expenses, are lines 55 through 50. And I just wanted to talk about two of them in particular because they kind of jump out at you. And the first one is line 70, which is pump maintenance. We typically budget around $157,000 a year for pump maintenance. If you look, you will see we are not anywhere near close to spending that this year. That has been because of a delay in receiving the new high service pump. 70 to 90,000 of that, $157,000 each year is to do rehabilitation on either a low service pump or a high service pump. And those are all in a rotation. We know when those need to come out, when those need to be pulled. One high service pump was due to come out this year. The intent was to replace it with the new high service pump that we are purchasing. And again, due to all the supply chain issues, the pump that was supposed to have been here the 1st of May now looks like it won't be here until the end of June. That's the reason that money is not getting spent this year. That also puts me, as I said, I'm behind 2 years now in getting high service pumps rehabilitated. So once I get one done this year, I'll be doing another one again very quickly in fiscal year 23. So that money is there to keep those 6 pumps that I have that are critical to take the water out of the river, get it into the plant, and then take it from the clear well to get it into town. The other particular one is the maintenance line, which is on line 90. That number, that value is actually 3 different lines. It is our maintenance budget. It includes money to clean out my residual lagoons, and it also includes a clear well inspection. After some discussion with Brian, since his distribution guys are very instrumental in cleaning out our lagoons, we have come up with a better way of handling the monies and how that was getting paid. So we were able to reduce that plant maintenance line down some. So that's why you see a decrease in that line as we're moving forward. We're just trying to make better use of our resources and make sure the money gets accounted for where it should be accounted for. But other than that, everything seems to be stable. Catherine had asked about chemicals. We just completed our chemical, it's a reverse auction. We saw what we typically see every year. Some chemicals went up, some chemicals went down. So the $500,000 that we've got budgeted for chemicals looks like it's going to be right on track for the next couple of years. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, for the water distribution, of course, Travis had talked a little bit about the AMI project. We're waiting on materials to get in. Testing phase 1 and 2 are complete. Materials are ordered, so we're hoping to get started sometime in August. The other thing I wanted to draw attention to was page 28, line 70. That's our water main replacement project. And so for next budget period, we got 4 or 5 jobs lined up, which is very important to our system, keeping up with old deteriorating water mains, water quality issues, and those types of things. Other than that, with the reservoir project, AMI, line replacement, 2nd Street project's going very well. Hoping to get some more good paying projects this year too on the capital end of things. So you guys got any questions for me?
Let me ask a question. Just throw this out and following up on something. For this year, I know the money that we talked about, David, for surplus, the Steve, I think we used that to pay for the extra liability insurance this year. We kind of said that's where that funding could possibly come from. On an annual basis, what's the number again, David, from the overall surplus of equipment and salvage everything that we're selling?
It's not uncommon to see anywhere from 15 to 30,000. That's a good range. Usually, that's a good range.
I mean, I was just wondering 2 things that came up. One, Julie, if you said you're 2 years behind on the pumps, mm-hmm. How many can you do in a year?
We could probably do 2. We would have to space them out apart. What will help is having this backup high service pump. So we take one out, put one in, and we're never short a pump.
I mean, do we need to get caught up on that 2-year cycle?
to be honest, I think my next one after this is due in 2023.
Uh-huh.
So if I can get one done in 2022, then I'll be back on schedule in 23.
Okay. And then, in lieu of your, pending, you're gonna be leaving us this new budget year?
That's the intent.
I just wondered, if we have the surplus and if we had to find the money, if the board wanted to, what would be the ability, David, to find the money to at least get the lab renovation started before she leaves?
I think using the same methodology and idea that we have had, if you're looking at the financials for water, it just takes, it's just expensive to operate, and really it's one of our cheapest services that we provide to our customers. So water doesn't have much more ability. We've got a 3.5% increase in rates years 2 through 5 of this budget.
Mm-hmm.
And as you can see on page 26, line 235, we're running pretty close to zero on cash reserves.
Yeah.
So I would just recommend that we would, either we're gonna, raise rates, cut costs, or looking at borrowing that a little bit more. So I think it can be done, no
It's
doubt about it.
She's estimating 170 in a 2-month project.
I think,
And it's what, a 50-year-old lab? I'm just throwing that out. I don't know if the board's got any interest in.
Well, the intent with moving it to 2023, we were going to be ready July 1st to start that project. We were going to try to get something to the board July of 2022 and get that project started then. So that was kind of the game plan.
Okay. So you don't want no new lab, huh?
I would like to leave a new lab for my lab manager when I leave. So if we can get it in July, August, that'll be good for me.
Okay.
And I do see the benefit to that.
Mhm.
The
Yeah.
person that's gonna be working in it can help design it.
Bad idea.
On line 100, the payroll, there's just a little discrepancy between what was budgeted and what's happened so far. Can you explain what that increase in what we had actually budgeted was?
What page is that on?
Oh, I'm sorry, 27. It's under payroll,
are we looking at line 55,
100.
line 100, okay. Water distribution,
Yes.
Yeah,
I don't know, could be
I'd have to look into it a little bit more, but
Look,
could be, I don't think our overtime's been inflated by any means.
something to think about whenever we budget payroll is you have the total gross payroll for the company, and it falls into two different pieces. If the men and women of the company are working on a capital project, the payroll for that work gets rolled into the overall cost of the project and capitalized and then depreciated over time. Or there is the maintenance side, and it lands as an expense in the year in the income statement. It's possible that there were some capital project work that moved to repairs and maintenance. I'm not saying that's the exact answer, but that is a factor to think about when we're budgeting, is we're looking at the total gross payroll for, let's just use water distribution. How much of that is going to be time spent for men and women on capital projects that will get put on the balance sheet? How much is going to get expensed in the income statement? So that will be a factor, I guarantee it, in the difference between the two.
Yeah, we've been on a lot of capital projects this year. So it's
And-
growth. Yeah.
And it's worth mentioning that in the whole budget, this estimated column 3 is taking the first, I think in this case, we took the first, let me think about this, the first 10 months of the year and we annualized it. So this is not, that estimate is a true estimate based on 10 months of activity. So it could come in closer to actual than not.
Well, if you look at that same thing what Catherine pointed out, and it depends on when things were booked in, like in 20, benefits was actually higher than payroll.
And there's something I
Which would be
didn't,
strange for that Because that's normally, other than health insurance, that's usually a percent of payroll.
Yeah, and this is something I know I've talked individually or have shared that in written information, that the unfunded liability for the plant board is something that we book as an adjustment each June, or last month of the fiscal year. This is the first budget where we have booked that unfunded liability estimate in the budget itself. The actual figures on that very first column are going to pick up on the adjustment we made in that year, 20. We did not budget for the unfunded liability last year in the budget itself, but going forward we are. I mean, that's going to be something we know we're going to have to deal with. And so to keep our budget to actual as close as possible, that's something worth noting. When you look at employee benefits, an increase this year, a lot of it is $3 million unfunded liability adjustment for CERS that we've booked. It attaches to every employee that is a member of CERS, so based on their pay.
Any questions for water? Okay, that takes us to telecom.
Mr. Chairman, so there we go. So telecom, I have Mike Harrod here. He's the engineering manager, and I have Shane Holt. He's the assistant superintendent, and then of course Adam Heller, the superintendent of telecom. So they'll go through the telecom budget for you.
Good afternoon. The cable budget starts on page 33. I will drop down to page 35, which has the start of the capital additions for the next 5 years. I guess I'll just kind of go through the highlights here. The first item there is line item 5, which is cable build and HVAC and installation. That's actually it was budgeted last year at $65,000. After doing a little research and looking into it, we actually hired a firm to kind of come in and see what we needed to correct some issues that we were having. And some of their early estimates to correct the problem is about $225,000. We're still in that process, but so that's what that item is. It appears next year, then it goes away. Of course, we talked about it a little bit earlier, line 10, community Wi-Fi. And like I said, and I'll try to give an update at the next board meeting where we're at on this year. This year was kind of an odd year with COVID, but we'll try to put together some kind of update and kind of give a little better roadmap of where we're going with that project. Line 15, new services, that's just new installation. We capitalized some of that material. The head-end equipment, that number is raised up a little bit this year. Part of that is because of the FCC repack where they sold off the spectrum for 5G. So we don't know what those expenses are, but I think we got plenty in there to cover it. Some of the other stuff is to upgrade some of our ad insertion equipment. Cable equipment. Sorry, is there any questions? Okay. I can't see you guys, so I didn't know. The next item, what was that? Cable equipment. That equipment, that's just kind of our test equipment, things of that nature. Cable 10, I'll let them go over that a little bit later. No division, you can see that's only the next 2 years, then it kind of drops off as more of the fiber of the home takes place. We'll have less need to do node division and things of that nature. Routine extensions, that's pretty common. High-speed data, that is quite a bit of an increase, and what we're going to do there, we're actually going to upgrade some chassis for our cable modem servers for those first 3 years of this budget. Then you'll see it drop back down to $400,000 where it's been typically for probably the last 5 or 6 years. Most of this stuff has been pretty flat. We did on line 55 cable TV equipment. We actually lowered that because a lot of the set-top boxes have been changed out over the years, so we're starting to see a decline in the number of set-top boxes we have to purchase. Metro Ethernet, security, the off-air tower, we just got everything back, and we will be sending that out for bid hopefully in the next week or two, and so that's probably going to definitely hit next year's budget, so that's why you see that in the next year's budget, of course. Then we have our big project, which is our next band, fiber to the home. As you can see, based on last year's budget, we've upgraded the spending, and we're really looking to knock this project out in the next 4 to 5 years. Spend a little bit of time here. If everything goes to plan as we have it right now, we will be 58% of our homes passed by the end of this budget year, which is good. The only concern that we have at this point is material lead time. We've been working with a lot of suppliers and our support service staff to try to make sure we're getting materials in, but we had the silicone shortage, and apparently some of the stuff that happened in Texas with the ice storm, there's some plastic shortage, and so it will affect this project. Don't know to what extent yet, but we're trying to do the best we can and get the materials in here for that. But that's the next 5-year plan for that. Second Street relocation, we had to roll that forward. The project really hasn't, I guess electric and water, a lot of the underground stuff has been going on, but it's a lot of stuff that the cable department won't get till next year. Our OTT platform, which we talked about this last month, or the month before last, was with Moby, and we're currently looking at another company to partner with on that. We're currently looking at 4 different companies and hopefully bring something back to the board maybe July, at the latest August, for a different solution for that. We don't know what that dollar figure is, so we just kind of put a placeholder in there, and we'll know more as we get a little closer. Advances in contracts, that's kind of normal. If you our expense pages starts page 36 through 42. We kept everything pretty flat on expense. The one line item, line 255, we increased by $20,000, and of course that is our tree trimming budget. One is payroll, and also with a lot of the fiber to the home, we're trimming a little more for the contractors to make sure they can get the facilities in and things of that nature. I know I kind of went through that kind of fast, but is there any questions?
On Adam, on the cable 10,
Yes,
the
sir.
increase on equipment from what, was it like 75 to 150 and then back down or something like that?
Yes, sir. Basically, talking with Mr. Columbia, who's in there in the back room with you guys, that is to look at a new production trailer, and that's why there's just that 1 year of increase.
And that's a trailer what we use for like the game of the weeks
ball
and everything?
games, the graduation ceremonies, anything they do remote outside of the studio.
Would that be an additional vehicle or a replacement?
That's a replacement.
Okay.
But since it's a trailer, I don't know if we want to call it that, because he might have 2 of them in service for a little while until he gets everything moved over.
Yeah.
But that's what it's for. It is a upgraded production trailer.
Any questions, Catherine?
I do. On line 105, the Second Street relocation, is that part of the upgrades due to the Tiger grant?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and so that, are we getting reimbursed?
Yes, ma'am.
We are. We got that in another spot, I think.
Yeah, we'll show the capital expenditure in this budget, and then we show on other income reimbursements for that flow through the income statement. So anything like that that would be received would be coming in onto page 34, line 255. Capital contributions are amounts that contractors or other entities pay FPB for work to be done to put utility service in.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Administration? Oh, one other question, Adam.
Yes, sir.
By long term, next several years, I know internet is doing well. Is cable still continuing to decline, or is it kind of plateaued, or is it continuing to go down?
I think it's got COVID was a strange year. I would hate to answer the question and be wrong. We've seen a lot of different things. Even putting this budget together, some of the stuff that we've seen, it's like, well, we can't count that because it was a COVID year. I think as long as we still take the approach that we have to pass the rate increases through, as much as we don't want to, but when they come, we pass them through. I think it's still, it's still viable. It still makes our rest of our products a sticky product. There's still people that enjoy watching linear TV.
I have just a question along that same line. Do we have much of a decline in people? I'm not getting out what I'm trying to say here. I think cable rates went up the 1st of May, didn't they? I think. So do we see when the rate goes up, do we see many people drop off of cable? So that, a couple dollars was the last straw?
I think you do see that. That's with any kind of rate increase. When it all comes together on that bill. I mean, believe it or not, and you probably aware, but back when they had the sewer increases, we would, every time the sewer increase would go up on the bill, we would actually lose cable customers, because that's just something that you can, in this day and time, that is an expense that you can get rid of easily. I mean, there's some people that won't, but if you're looking at your bill and you need to make cuts, that's one place that you can see cuts. We've seen major decreases in pay service, HBO and Showtime, and back when we dealt with the sewer increases. So yeah, I'm sure that either the increase of cable itself or any other increase that is on that bill, push people that way. So.
Thank you.
Okay, next one, Ben, is admin. Or this David, isn't it? Yeah.
Since she's ready, I think. Okay, so we'll do admin. If you're fine, we'll go ahead as part of the administrative and stuff as the support services group.
Yeah.
And so I have Leanne Phillips. She is the head of support services. I'll see if she's on here in a second. I think she also has Tommy Roberts, the head of the garage, with her as well.
Good afternoon.
I hear her voice, but do not see her.
I know.
There
How's
she is.
that?
Mm.
All right.
That's it.
Good afternoon. I'd like to review fleet services and support services with you. Fleet services, the expenses are on page 55. They are the exact same as last year's. There's no increases or decreases. And the capital portion for fleet services is included in support services capital budget. So that is, it's pretty cut and dry. Do you have any questions on fleet services before I move on to support?
Well, I'm just thinking about on fleet services, since we talked about when we replace vehicles, we want to look at, I'm not sure, Leanne, if you're in the right one or not, but when we replace vehicles, have we contacted the state finance cabinet to see, are they going to be doing any price contracts for electric vehicles for the state, which would allow us to buy off price contract and get the advantage of that kind of bulk buying?
I have not talked to anyone from the state, but I have talked to our fleet salesperson that we deal with for our other purchases that are on state price contract. And they do anticipate the Ford F-150 Lightning being on the state price contract.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. If you want to move on
Currently,
to the,
Bolt is already on the contract.
What the Bolt is?
Yeah,
Okay.
Sarah Lee Bolt.
Okay. Go on, Leanne.
okay. Moving on to the support services section. On page 67 is the capital portion. We just have a few things on there. The 24,000 for security is something that we include each year. That is for upgrading and doing additions to the security systems at the plant board facilities. The office furniture, that's just replacements. The equipment purchases, that includes a tire changer and maybe some additional equipment upgrades for our garage. We also have 25,000 for warehouse improvements. This will include a concrete forklift ramp on the dock, a floor drain replacement in the warehouse, and possibly converting the light fixtures in the garage to LED lighting. And then we also have 20,000 for service center office improvements, and that's basically to update some of the structure inside the office. We have a lot of wood paneling still that we'd like to replace with drywall. And
Mr. Chairman,
on the
Hold-
expenses,
Leanne, hold up a second.
Sure.
Catherine?
before you leave that page, just to go all the way with the electric equipment issue, for these, for this equipment scheduled to be replaced, could we have the same proviso about comparing cost and cost savings with electric if they're available for these before purchases are made?
sure. Okay, if there's no other questions, I'll move on to expenses. For support services, the only increase is line 150 on page 68. It's an increase of $3,500 for HVAC repairs at the service center. Are there any questions?
Any other questions from any board members? No, I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
All right, that would kind of wrap up the folks that I am responsible for. David, do you want to take the rest of that?
Yep. I'll go ahead just for a moment. I think it's worth talking about how this flows in the budget. So all of the administrative sections are support departments. Their internal customers are the other departments of the plant board.
Well, that was pretty easy. If you don't, you can go ahead and go. I'm sorry.
On each of these administrative sections, you'll notice at the very bottom, we give an administrative overhead allocation. So what we've done is do our best to determine how much of these expenses should be allocated to the three divisions of the company, electric, water, telecom. And we add all of those up for each division from each administrative department, and it flows over to the very next to last line of the income statement of the electric and water telecom division. So these admin departments don't really generate income on their own, but yet they're there to support the function and activities of electric, water, telecom. So I just want to make that point as you see the allocations below and how they will feed over into the three lines of business. And then we have to set rates, not just with the directly allocable expenses for each division, but also the allocated administrative and overhead portion. So I just wanted to bring that up. So let's look for a minute here, starting at the very, on page 43. We're talking, this is the general section. This is kind of catching the two biggest things you'll see is depreciation of $1 million, corporate insurance on line 45 of $1 million. Those are the two biggest parts of this section. The driving increase year-over-year budget on the general is the corporate insurance line 45. I think you remember, I guess it was back in January or so when we approved general insurance, there were some increases that we've accounted for. So that's just represented in this budget. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. The depreciation is just anything that is a admin asset. The depreciating lands in this section, and with the building being the biggest asset that's considered administrative. If there are no questions there, I'm going to run right over to the next page, on page, or 2 pages back on 45. This is what we are calling the administrative section. This, on the payroll and benefits, is capturing administrative staff that, are working across in different divisions, and you can allocate across, general manager, Gary's pay, mine is flowing into here. Vent is touching more than just one division. So, there's several staff members that are functioning not just in one line of business, but multiple. The biggest thing I would point out here is you'll see a decrease year over year in this budget, budget to budget. Line 130, interest expense, that is the interest on the 2015A bonds that we're discussing paying off. So if you were to pay those off, you see that $475,000 number drops off That's what we talked about earlier, saving interest expense. You can put that money towards other things. So that's just one thing I wanted to point out in that section. In this section, Kathy Lindsay, our public information, our marketing and communications director, her budget falls in here. And I think it's a good time. I was going to see if we could bring Kathy Lindsay in and her group to talk just a little bit about communication and marketing next year, what that looks like, and some of the things she has planned.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, on page 46, we've got line 175 to 200 is just basic the public information expenses, and those aren't any different than last year or the years past. We're still doing the scholarships. We still have the money for community engagement, which is when we do, when we go out into the community, like at Candlelight and the summer concert series, and when we go out to Longest Day of Play, any events that we go out to, and we take, FPB educational materials, our water bottles, anything like that, we use that money for that. And, just to get involved in the community and to be available to the community to answer questions, things like that. Our educational materials, just, things we have to have printed. And then we do a customer appreciation event every year. We didn't get to do one last year because of COVID, and we had budget money for that, and an employee appreciation event. Then we also have our Frankfurt on Tap branding, and that amount hasn't changed. So those are the things. Again, everyone's talked about how it's this past year has been different, and so we didn't spend a lot of money last year because we did a lot of stuff online and didn't get out in the community and do that kind of thing. So we're looking forward to getting back into that this summer. We will be participating in Candlelight and the summer concert series, which is going to start this time next month. And we'll be, looking for other events to get out and just be a part of the community, again, to make ourselves available to our customers. And then we also have the things that we've been working on is promoting AMI and our new products through Nextband. And with that, speaking of, the new things that we're doing in marketing, I thought maybe I would just go ahead and bring Harvey on, if that's okay, to talk about his budget. Is that okay, David?
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, so the telecom marketing is on page 41, because that lands in the telecom budget. Again, no real changes from last year. The only new thing that we're adding is on line 1625, which is an outbound sales campaign that we're going to work with a third party to help us do, and we're hoping to get that started here pretty soon. But otherwise, looking forward to getting Nextband rolling and start getting folks signed up and spread the word about that service.
That's kind of just hitting the highlights. Any questions for Kathy or Harvey?
One thing I did want to bring up, this was something Dawn had talked about, I guess several year and a half ago, whatever. Probably one of the greatest neighbors that we've got are the residents on Myrtle Avenue. That's where all of our stuff goes up and down to our facilities and everything else. And Dawn, you want to talk about, and you talked about doing some type of event there at some point?
Well, and I think Steve really had talked about that too. We expect a lot from those people with our trucks going up and down with the ugly parking lot across the street there from them. And if we could do some kind of appreciation day to those people, I think it would be really nice.
And last year we weren't able to do it again because of the COVID. But like I said, that neighborhood, like Dawn said and Steve, that neighborhood, all of our equipment, everything runs up and down that road every day. Electric, water, everything, and those people are great.
Right.
So just add that to your list, Miss Lindsay.
I'll just add it to the list.
Okay.
Again, I just want to say we're so looking forward to, being back in action, because when we're able to get out into the community, that's when we really do some good work. And again, I think we've done a great job. I do want to commend all of the crew, the Cable 10 crew, for everything that they've done in this past year to make things as accessible as possible. And we look forward to continuing that, really, because again, COVID has taught us, different ways that we can communicate and keep everyone as engaged as we can. And so now we'll have it in person and virtually. And again, we're just really looking forward to being able to have double our efforts out there and getting people made aware of what we have going on, and our products and our services, and how they can benefit our customers and the community as a whole.
Steve, you had something?
Yeah, Kathy, I know we've talked about the putting something on the water tower on the west side.
Yes.
What about the one on the east side? The one out there on Versailles Road, out in the industry complex. I mean, it looks kind of drab to me when I look at it.
It does say Frankfurt on it.
It says Frankfurt on it, but it just, I don't know, maybe it just needs a cleaning, and maybe it's just a weather warning.
It might just need a good power washing. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe that's what it needs.
It is concrete.
Yeah.
So, well, that's something I can talk with David and Vint and Brian about. But again, it's a little different because of the way that it's shaped and that it is concrete.
Yeah, we can't paint.
So,
we
but
don't want to paint
thanks
that
for
one on the outside. We have letters up there that say Frankfurt. I guess we could change the letters, but they
maybe
may
just
be,
they
may be
a
part of the
refurbishment.
structure.
I mean, I don't think it needs a change. It just looks weather worn.
John?
Just a comment. I just think you all do a great job with the Round 10. I think particularly as the State Journal has less and less to offer, I think it becomes even more important that people are able to know what's going on in the community through the plant board. And I think you all do a great job with Cable 10 and the people that you bring in to talk to about different events and things going on. And I just think it's fun to watch, and you all do a great job.
Well, thank you so much. We've gotten a lot of good comments about it and some good feedback, and we're hoping again to continue that. I know that again, our Cable 10 crew, they get spread pretty thin. Like for example, over the weekend, they did 2 graduations, 3 baseball games, and those were all live events. And they just keep, and then they showed up yesterday to do a live show. We do that 3 times a week. So again, I appreciate everything they do, and thank you so much for your comments. I will go back and say, when we talked about next band, we are going to be working with the city to start promoting that more, and that we will have that service available here in Frankfurt, because it will offer speeds of up to a gig, and that is a big selling point for the city, especially with the mayor who, he invested in growing our community, and he's talking about this remote worker incentive program, and we can be a big part of that by promoting more of the internet service that we offer for residents. So again, we have a lot of things on the burner. So we have a big stove going right now. So we look forward to a lot of partnerships, not only with the city and the county, but we'll continue on again with the health department and our schools, whatever we can do to help people engage our community more.
Hey, overall, Catherine?
Just a comment, just to remind ourselves of just the improvement in broadcasting our meetings from a year ago.
Yes.
And so some good things came out of necessity, the COVID necessity. So thank you all for that as well.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
Steve?
A different question. I noticed in the paper where, the county is getting $1 million for broadband, and they talked about maybe getting it matched by the state. Are we gonna be involved in however we can be involved in that, you know, if it helps us to expand in the county? Or,
The board approved the expansion plan we had last year. You know, it's the same like we build a fiber to home broadband, also have the same plan to expand into the county. And those just take longer to finish the project, roughly 8 years. But I mean, I know you asking me the question. Actually, we have some contact with county. We had a meeting with a county judge. Me and Gwen, David, Adam, we all together met at our judge. So we really just waiting, say what a county would like to do.
well, I guess I'm asking the question from the perspective of, since we're in this budget hearing, and is there a potential additional cost for the exploration of collaboration with them? Is it, you know, so I'm just throwing that out there. Is it potentially another cost that needs to be anticipated in this budget? I know you don't know the figure right now, but the thought that it
we
might be.
present our existing plan you already approved to the judge. So judge is going to looking from his side, either the funding from the county or from the state government, if there's a way to speed up the build out to the county. So your question is, I guess, is there some expense for us? We currently already funded the plan, just the 80-year gradually build out like you approved before. So if there's any money potentially can come from a county or the state or federal, then we have a contract engineer already, we can speed up that.
Well, again,
Does that make sense to you?
It does, but I'm thinking that, you know, with any collaboration may come some alterations to what we are doing right now, have planned to do. And that's what I'm saying, if there are potentially a way that we can collaborate, but makes us alter or expand what we're already planning to do, then I'm just putting it on your minds to think that there might be a cost associated which would give us a gain hopefully in the long run, but it might be a short-term cost.
If there's additional funding, we always can bring into the budget.
Yeah.
Just the funding source will be different. So then we can certainly speed up the process build out, you know, particular area if county choose to. So I think you're right. Whenever that happens, they're going to reflect on the budget, then we're going to burn that in front of you.
But what Steve's talking about, the additional funding the county's got, and you've had some preliminary discussions with the county about our availability to modify our plan or to meet what they'd like to do. And if they want to do that, that we can
We have a
accommodate.
very detailed plan to build out, for example, which area potentially we could build out under the budget number. The county already have those numbers. So we have a timeline when we plan to build out if there's no additional funding, which is 8 years. So if there's any additional funding come in, either from state, federal, or county, then we're gonna bring the new plan to you to say, we're gonna do this project this year or next year based on that funding. Then will be in our budget. The only way the funding source is gonna come from other than our own revenue. Does that make we will change it if there's any information come back from David. Is that
You're absolutely right. What you're saying, Mr. Mason, is what we have planned to do. If we have to go accelerate, move faster, then yes, that will have additional costs that we would bring back. So I think we're on the same page.
John, do you have anything else? So at this point, does anybody have any other changes, anything we want to do in the budget? Move anything, add anything? So with this, you've got the changes we've talked about. So unless there's any other issues or whatever, that this will be the document you'll be bringing to us on the 15th to adopt, is that right? Or I'm not sure what's the date, the next board meeting.
It is the 15th, yes,
15th.
sir. The third Tuesday is the 15th. So we will use this as this is the baseline to work from. What we can do is bring any comments, suggestion, changes that have occurred at this meeting and anything that comes between now and the 15th as a supplemental discussion of what does it add or what does it subtract from this.
And
then we
the biggest, I guess, wild card out there is if the city does a salary adjustment in addition to the 2% we've included, then that would reflect, that'd be a fairly significant change depending on where they went.
Yes, it would be a change. We have a COLA, at the 2%. If anything above that would need to be some massaging done.
Right, and that would kind of ripple through the whole document.
Right.
Okay.
So you're saying that the city, if we do a 2 right now and the city does a 2, then nothing changes?
Nothing changes,
Okay,
yeah.
but if they go
the language
above
we had
that,
talked
then it
about was 2 unless the city does more.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, if the
Okay.
city does 2 or less, then we stay at 2.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Have there been any public comments or input so far?
No, ma'am. We released the budget. We had a discussion in April about releasing the budget today, so the budget will be available. I do think there might be some paper in town that writes something about it today or soon. So the budget's out there. It's in our board packet. So to this time, we do not. But between now and the 15th,
And if you would, if you get comments anytime between now and the 15th, get them to all the board members so everybody can see what's coming in.
okay. Will do. I think payroll changes are really the ones that take the most time because of the expansiveness of it, if it goes across everything. Those are the ones that take the most time, so the quicker we can get those lined out, the better.
Okay. Well, if there's nothing else we need to do, and this is a special called meeting for this item, so if there's nothing else, we took care of the EBB.
Yes, sir.
And Hans is gonna have that wrapped up in the morning. And we got that, and we're done with the budget, so things look pretty good.
Yes, sir.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
We got a first and second, so we're adjourned. Thank you all.